We're live. She's here.
Oh, holy moly!
Holy moly.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you. Hey,
Hey, hello. I'm sorry I'm a little bit slightly. Yeah. Ah, not
no
really.
problem.
21. I'm not late. Good. Hello, guys.
Hey,
Thank
how
you for
are
inviting
you?
me. Pretty
No,
good. Yeah. Sirens all day, but other than that, pretty good.
okay.
Oh, yeah. Also, I've been swarmed by commies on Twitter, but that's not big deal.
Nice.
Happens to the best
So
of
Ben
us.
can ask the first question because we actually talked about it.
Oh,
Huh?
really? Oh,
I
okay.
forgot.
But the-
No, he
you
didn't
guys
forget.
German, right? Or
Yeah, German.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I've been called Nazi so many times today that I just must end my day by speaking with German dudes. It makes sense.
Yes.
Great. Now you're in the right place. Not really, because my parents are actually Muslims, so
Oh,
the
well,
Nazis
bummer.
don't like me. But Kircho, maybe he's a true Southern Slavic something Bulgarian dude.
Yes, I'm also not really German. Yeah, I'm from Bulgaria. Or my
Oh,
parents are.
guys, you ruin the vibes.
Yeah, kind of.
Damn it.
Not appropriate company.
Yeah,
for a
my
Nazi
stream
person.
says you can you turn up your microphone a little bit or
Probably. Sorry, I'm like not very technically literate person.
Don't worry, Kircho isn't either.
I mean,
Учник.
nice. Thanks, Ben.
How's that? A bit better?
Now it's a bit
Yeah,
better, yes.
that's great.
Louder, or is it fine?
It's
like
fine. It's fine like
No,
that,
it's
yes.
fine. Yeah.
Okay. I want to say before we start that how do you say your name?
Kircho.
Kircho. Oh, okay. Your like picture is super cute.
Thank you.
The thing is very cute. Well, anyhow, yeah. Let's go. The questions.
Let's go.
Let's go, Kircho. Go.
Oh, I'm going with
Those
my
were
question.
your questions, right? Yeah.
Okay. I mean, sure. Yeah, my first question was, have you noticed some sort of far-right legislature or weird action during the Maidan government, as it's painted by the Russian propaganda as Nazi coup? So
No.
Not at all.
I can elaborate. Yeah, but basically, there were some right people, obviously, right? You have like a revolution, you have like nationalist type of vibes everywhere, which makes sense that people who are quite, let's say, far right will use this as an opportunity to further their cause, which I think is pretty, obvious, should be obvious to anyone. I can't say that they were successful because nobody voted for them. Can I swear? By the way.
Of course. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. So nobody voted for said fuckers, so they kind of like lost on every front, didn't manage to get even 1% of votes. But like in the very like end of the revolution itself, when Yanukovych escaped, our president escaped to Russia and was our president no longer, then at that specific like short period of time, they got some ground because they were like temporarily temporal leaders, but very temporarily. But after that, there was a election, which people voted for Poroshenko, which could hardly be called a far-right dude. He was actually part of the Party of Region, which is Yanukovych party for quite some time. So it's not like, anyhow, what I mean is that they gained some ground for a while and then immediately were voted out when actual elections took place after our president escaped. So we kind of had like this very weird situation where we had no government for some time and no like functional anything, which was a bit chaotic, as you can probably imagine. But after the proper election were held, which were Poroshenko was elected, and pretty much every right-leaning party that tried to gain some sort of ground was fucked, I guess you could say. That's about it.
Yeah, I think the only thing they actually managed was to so I'm writing a Ukraine document to disprove some Russian narratives in Germany, and in my research I found out that Klitschko and Yatsenyuk actually wanted to make
Yatsenyuk, yeah.
they wanted to make a deal with Yanukovych, but the Maidan in general was not happy to let him stay in power,
Yeah.
and that was probably the right wing dudes also that kind of furthered the flames.
Further the flames, I wouldn't say so exactly, because just people were incredibly unhappy, and just people in general, and getting even more unhappy as they were killed, you know? So yes, it was very hard at that point to make people consider anything but just entirely removal of Yanukovych out of power, because basically I think this what actually inflamed it was when first person was killed, which who was Negayan. He was actually Armenian Ukrainian who was killed, and we were it was very like disheartening, obviously, because he was a young man, a Ukrainian, and a protester, and he was killed. So yeah, people after that, they just became way more angry, and the protests just also there's the sniper thing, everything, like using like water tanks to basically roll people over, decapitated bodies, I apologize for graphic shit, taking them to the forests and cremating them, the protesters who were killed by Berkut. And it's all war in everyone's face. We saw it, with our own eyes, which was very hard to miss. And that's because of that mostly. Yeah, there was this anger that some people may have tried to capitalize on, but at the same time, I can't say it was like such a prevalent thing. And also, quite the majority of people who were called far right afterwards, like after Maidan, and after there was like the smearing campaign by Russia, calling everyone like Azov Nazi, Banderites, this on and dance. Most of them were not. Like there were people who were definitely like very like traditional far right nationalist types that I personally like. Hard to be friends with them with green hair, let's say like that. Yeah, but other than that, and LGBT stuff as well, obviously. But other than that, most of them are like that in Ukraine. It's very like important to highlight that they are painted almost all the time by Russian propaganda as Nazis due to the history of Bandera. In 50s, they basically started calling everyone Stalin that were against the communist regime and the Soviet Union. Basically, call them Nazis, and it works. Crimean Tatari were like deported like that from Crimea. They called them Nazi collaborators, traitor nation. Basically, you can call after World War II, you can call anyone a Nazi, and this be your like carte blanche to do anything you want with them, which is something they did with Ukrainians as well, with mass deportations. And ever since then, like Bandera became kind of like this boogeyman, the poster boy why Ukrainians are Nazis. Same thing with Azov at this point in time. I believe Azov is like modern day Bandera, basically. So yeah, most of those people were far right and not all right, who were far right, all right, are not my cup of tea personally, but I wouldn't call them like Nazis. And yeah, the only people were like really uncomfortably like obviously Nazi were like people like Beletsky, for example, which you probably heard of him, or maybe not. Actually, Russians don't talk about him much. A real Nazi for some reason. He was the one who actually kind of like created Azov. So yeah, the original person who was like and his dudes as well were like, yeah, they were like white race shit, full on like Nazis. But people like that were first of all rare, and second of all obviously exaggerated to like insane degree by Russian propaganda. And Beletsky, by the way, for some reason they really rarely talk about him, which is kind of interesting, because he's the one I would definitely easily call a Nazi, like without any like without any tone and yeah.
Yeah, I think they don't really talk about him because he started to go into politics and he failed miserably. So he's not really the poster boy for
right. Yes, he actually like tried to yeah, that's why they don't talk of him. He's like a bad proof that Ukrainians are Nazi nation, because basically even his own bodies, I actually spoiler know some of them. even like his bodies at the time, they were like, dude, like white race, what, like what?
What
And
is
they
a
are
white
basically like
race?
yeah, they're kind of like dissociated. And there was like this person Nemechev, who is now leader of Kraken. From Kharkiv, by the way, from my city. So he basically dissociated like that with Azov, not with Azov, with Beletsky, because he was like, dude, this is like not it. It's not what not we don't ally with that shit. It's just yeah, we're right dudes, when we are like nationalists, we're Ukrainian nationalists, but this is just not something we like. They didn't care like about this whole Jewish shit, like Jewish, ruling everything like Nazis usually tend to do. They didn't care much about like white race topic because race is not that important in Ukraine. Nobody really talks about it. It's hard to sell it, so so people really like dissociated themselves. And after that, dissociation continued because Azov battalion kind of became like just a battalion that people enlisted to protect their homeland and Donbass at the time after the annexation of Crimea in the invasion of Donbass in 2014. Whereas Beletsky was very interested in politics, in gaining like political power and becoming like a political figure, political force, which didn't work for him. But but many other battalions are that then became like volunteer battalions defending us against Russia when we had no army at the time in 2014. They kind of like dissociated almost completely from that. But people like Nemechev admit easily that there are like certain percentage of very far right people there still, obviously. So he says like about I think 20% or something like that.
Yeah.
He says that people are pretty far right. And spoiler to everyone listens, far right people exist in the world. They do, I know it's uncomfortable for many people, but they just do. And yeah, they join movements, and yeah, they sometimes participate in defending their nation from invasion that
Yeah,
tries to.
and that's the
Yeah.
difference, because I was talking with Kircho before you came on here about what would happen if some country attacked Germany, for example. Of course, all those right-wing people would join volunteer battalions first, in comparison to some left-winger or someone who's driving a bike and wishes for nuclear power to vanish or something. That's like, yeah,
Yeah,
I would think
for
so.
sure.
It's
Not
just
only because they're. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
no, it's
Continue.
okay. You can continue.
Okay. Not only because they're so cute, not only because they're nationalists, obviously, right? So the guys do love their country. Let's put like that. So you can say they love it a little bit too much. This could be said, yeah. But overall, like these people would be the ones who do, want to defend it. Also, I apologize. No, I don't apologize to leftists. Fuck that. But people on the right actually tend to have a little bit of a spine, a little bit of a spine to go and defend things they care about. So this is something that happened during Maidan times. People who defended me personally from being beaten up by Titushki, which is basically like gopniks. Oh, I changed one word for another. I'm sorry. Basically like how do you call them? Like criminals type of guys, like who were like paid by like to beat up Maidan protesters. Also from
Oh, okay.
Russian. Yeah, people like that. Yeah, so basically like alpha macho like criminal minded dudes, stuff like that. And also there was like this particular thing that they would bring people from Belgorod, which is Russian city that currently bombs my city right now as we
Yes.
speak. They would bring people from there like in buses basically and pretend that these were Kharkiv people all the time. And you would like ask them questions then like, what is this biggest street in the city called? And they're like, Marx, Lenin. And you're like, good try, but no. Good try, because some things in almost all things in post-Soviet got to be named Marx or Lenin. So
It's also
it's just that. Yeah, that was it.
yeah, it's also very funny because I've also read up on Odessa and Kharkiv, the initial protests, where also people stormed. In Kharkiv, they stormed the theater and mistaking it for city hall.
Yes.
That's also
Oh, you
very
know
funny.
it.
Yeah.
It's an ancient lore. I actually was there when it happened. Oh, that's cute.
Oh,
Yeah, that's true. They were like very, not they didn't know city that well. Let's put it like that.
Which is
It was
funny
pretty
because
obvious.
yeah, it's funny because in this type of in this age, you can actually Google it. You could prepare for that, and they just didn't, and just mistake the building
Well,
for it.
not if you are drunk, moron. Then no, then you can't. Yeah, I remember there was like this very cool old guy, like a very old man who was like, I think like 80s, maybe in his 80s, 70s at least. He was participating in Maidan like almost every day he was there. And I was his like fun girl, basically. He was like kind of blind as well. So yeah, so it was very interesting to hear him talk. He was actually a cool gent. He was anti-Soviet and anti-commie back in the day. He was one of the people who wrote newspapers about Soviet oppression of Ukraine and Ukrainian people back in the day. So is OG revolutionary, that guy. But he was basically when he saw those Belgrade people, he would always scream "Vodki нет, idите домой," which is like in Russian, "There is no vodka, go home." This is something you scream at Russians every time you see them. So yeah, this is just yeah. By the way, that guy actually, that old elderly gent, actually saved my ass one time because we were attacked by Titushki at the protest, and people panicked and started to run, and I fell because it was winter and it was very ice and everything, kind of
Slippery,
hard
yeah.
to walk. Yeah. So I fell, and people started running through me,
Oh,
which was
yeah.
not pleasant. Yeah, so I was like kind of like what trying to get up and falling, and then he just basically gave me like his hand. He put me up, and he like removed the snow from me, like old, like a grandpa would. And he was like, little girl, like, are you okay? And I was like, oh my god, this is like my favorite grandpa. Yeah, and it was very. And I then guided him to the safety because he didn't see, and we kind of like helped each other. He also smacked one of them with his stick, one of
Yeah,
the
with his
Titushki
cane,
people.
yeah.
Yeah, cool man for
Good
sure. Yeah,
guy.
Very
I want to
nice.
be this based when I'm old. Yeah,
I hope so, yeah.
Beating
yeah.
up fascists, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, so most people were like, many people who defended us against the police, actually, who were very corrupt and very much pro-Russia and trying to create Kharkiv People's Republic, basically. So something like Donetsk people, the
It
Republic,
lasted
like
for
full
one
new
day,
Republic.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, there was like a huge protest, 60,000 people actually, which I participated in, and we pretty much prevented it from happening. And also the same day, we removed the biggest statue of Lenin in Ukraine. So that was a big day. But anyhow, what I was basically trying to say is the people who actually defended us the most probably were ultras, which like football fans and football hooligans. They would like wear masks and just get like in a circle, kind of like around us, and defend us from Titushki, from Belgorod people, from police as well. It was pretty interesting. They kind of like turned their usual senseless violence to a little bit less senseless violence, which is defending women and children and elderly people who were like at the protest and couldn't defend themselves. So yeah, was a crazy time, dude.
Yeah, but nice it didn't work in Kharkiv and Odessa, at least.
Oh sure, we did try to prevent it quite hard. So
Yeah,
it's not just like a coincidence.
yeah.
So we did everything we could to prevent it, actually. Yeah.
I think
Sorry, my
many
camera
people.
is being weird
No,
for
it's
some
okay.
reason. I don't know.
I think in
It's
Donetsk
just
and
like
Lugansk they also tried, but yeah, the obvious Russian meddling and Igor Girkin and the Little Green Men, or as
yeah.
I like to call them, not separatists, but just Russian army guys,
Yeah.
kind of
Also,
prevented it.
to be fair, there was more support for Russia there. It's
Yeah,
not
true.
anywhere near as big as Russians painted. Like maybe like 70% something of Donbass people never wanted to separate from Ukraine, considering like statistics. So, but I would say like a good chunk of people there, bigger chunk than anywhere else in Ukraine, were kind of sympathetic to Russia.
Yeah.
Not to the point that I don't think they wanted what happened there. They just didn't understand what was going to happen there. But they might be like, I also happen to have like most of my friends are from Donbass for some reason. I don't know why. It's just so it happened, So most of them escaped actually Donbass and stayed in Kharkiv afterwards, which is where I'm from. So most of them told some crazy shit like about people being forced and like prosecuted and just scared shitless to do anything because they were like they were taken to like prisons and torture chambers and all sorts of shit. It was like the most like horrible people were like empowered there by Russia. So people who were
Yeah.
just straight up like looters, rapists, killers,
Yeah, it was basically run by warlords. Like there was no
Yeah.
like real state or something with working institutions. It was just like a warlord-run state. Yeah.
Yeah,
And they,
basically, who has a gun that has a power there, so you can
Mhm.
like dictate anything you want with just being with like weapons and sponsored by Russia, basically. So of course, like regular civilians had like very much zero chance to do anything about it, even if they wanted to. So yeah,
yeah, and
that sucks.
Igor Girkin also, he's like the most prominent critic of Putin, and I also wonder why he's still alive, because he called in, I think in 2016 he already started to call like, why are we not fully invading Ukraine? So he was pushing very hard for it, and he was very critical of him, and yet he's still there. I don't know.
You know, actually, I kind of like Girkin. I mean, no, I obviously hate the guy, but I just enjoy watching his suffering. You know, I just enjoy watching him like looking sadly at the camera and saying like, "We're fucked, guys." No, basically is what he says.
Hmm.
We don't have like equipment. We have been abandoned. We are not like our government is not effective in this like invasion and things like that. And it's just kind of as Ukrainians, we kind of like enjoy it a little bit. You know, it just gives us a little bit of a thrill to
Yeah.
watch him suffer. Yeah, although he is obviously like a fascist fuck, but and other than that, it does. Also, Prigozhin, seeing Prigozhin mope and cry is also very fun. It's like a Wagner leader,
Yes.
basically. Yeah,
Mr.
so
Proper. Do you know
yeah, that
Mr.
one.
Proper?
I don't think she
Uh,
knows. It's German.
no, I don't think.
It's like I don't know. It's like this German. What is it called? Cultural
Commercial.
like
A commercial for
cleaning
cleaning.
guy. Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
Oh,
like Mr. Proper.
oh,
I will send.
Robert. I know the
Yeah, yeah,
guy. It's like the bald dude that with
yeah, yeah,
Nana split
Yeah.
exactly.
floors with. We use it.
But Pri
I know
but
Mr.
Prigozhin
Proper.
looks like a balloon which is inflated too much, and then like it goes it shrinks again. That's like
Ah,
Prigozhin. Yeah.
yeah, it makes sense, you know. Just I approve of your harassment of this dude.
Good.
Very good.
I like harassment.
Yeah, you already answered this question, but still, programs run by Viktor Medvedchuk. Have you seen some of
No,
the TVs or nothing?
no, I super apologize, but anyone with like a shred of self-respect does not
Okay.
watch that.
Okay.
I mean, I like to answer, but I don't even know. I can like presume what they showed there, or like I can kind of like imagine what they're showing there, but I didn't like see that. So,
Like never at
um,
all. It was not like
nah,
trash TV for you or something like that.
no,
Okay, that's
too
fine. Yeah.
cringy. I cannot.
Yeah.
There's enough of like suffering in my life. I don't have to like put myself through additional. Yeah, so this is sorry, but no.
Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah, some people like ask me like, do you watch like Russian TV? Sometimes I just see like things they say like on Twitter, on like like snippets of it, like pieces, like little clips.
Mhm.
But just to like straight up sit through that shit is just why would
No.
I? Also, there's like nothing new to be honest. There, like if something interesting comes up, people would message me or tell me, or I would see like in Telegram somewhere like a bit of it, but just straight up watching that shit. This is pretty much have been the only time I actually watched quite a lot of Russian propaganda and Russian stuff was in 2014 when I was trying to actually understand what the heck is going on.
Mm.
Because I was just talking with my relatives. Most of them live in Russia, so bummer for me. But
Mm.
I just talked with them when I was during Maidan times, during revolution times, and they would say the most craziest shit you can possibly like imagine, like Nazis overthrowing everything, Nazis running around, trying to overtake Kiev, killing Russian speakers and
Yeah.
Russian people everywhere. And I was like, what the heck? Like, what? I'm like that protester. What are you on about? I speak Russian like all the time. I never spoke Ukrainian at all. So yeah, so it was crazy. But I was like, they must be taking this info somewhere, right? So I started to take interest and watch like Russian TV, and I was like, whoa, the amount of bullshit was like staggering. And this was the moment I actually realized we're in deep trouble
Yeah.
because this is not a coincidence. They're just preparing for their people for a certain opinion. For example, opinion that Ukraine needs to be denazified, which then ended up being true. So I felt like this dread that shit was going to went down, and it kind of did, as you can see. Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. Oh, yeah, my cats are fighting. That's cool. Um,
Oh,
so during
truth.
yeah, during Poroshenko's time, what did you think of him? His performance, was it good? Was it bad?
So I actually voted for him because I was finally old enough to vote just as revolution ended. So I was very hyped, and yeah, he was not the best candidate. I would not, choose him if I had like other more, I guess, suitable
Opinions.
options.
Yeah.
Yeah, but other than let's say like that, comparatively to Yanukovych, it was a step up, which is a very low
Mhm.
bar, but it is what it is. And sure, like there are like a bunch of it's a Ukrainian tradition just to shit endlessly on our government. It's just it's just something that we do. We're never happy. We're always displeased, always think they're shitheads. It's just like a national trait of Ukrainian people. So people criticize him quite a lot because they just can't help themselves. Shit on elites is something you just enjoy doing, as a
Mm.
Ukrainian. But overall, which is not bad, by the way, not the worst thing in my opinion. But it's just he did some good stuff. So like a reform of our like administrative reform was pretty good. It like upped our let's say like functionality of our like administrative institutions very well. Also there was like this huge digitalization of Ukraine where like one
All
my
good.
mic. I basically just what I was talking about. Oh, digitalization. So basically this happened under him as well. One of them the biggest changes, especially for young people, that you can have everything in your apps, like banking system in Ukraine is unbelievably efficient. It's like more efficient than it is apparently in Western countries. You can
Yeah.
pretty much do all operations just with your phone. All even like international, local, whatever it is. You can
Mhm.
like, we have like this app called Dia, which is kind of new. It's not Poroshenko, but it was like started with him, basically, this process that has like all our documentations, all of our fines, all of our like important things just in one app, and you can like pay for your for rent. You can pay for your like like very very much like modern type of things that we did not have, and it was like such a spike in like 8 years. It's so different than it was before, like 2014. And administrative reform, I would say, and military reform is something he started. So I'd say props for that to him, definitely. And yeah, but some things I obviously like didn't like that much, but yeah, he was not Russophobic enough to my taste. Let's put it like that.
Okay.
Also, yeah, that's a joke, like a common joke. So your Russophobia is never enough, apparently. So this is just something. He was way too like old type of a politician,
Mm.
oligarch with
Mhm.
like oligarch past, ties with Russia, ties with like a party of the region, not radical, nearly radical change that we hoped for as revolutionaries. So many people got really how to say it, like apathetic, dejected before after revolution, especially younger people who were like, oh, shit is not going like fast enough, there's like no change, European Union doesn't want us because we suck still, things like that. This was like very much what people were like upset about, including me. So it made us like upset and feeling like we didn't achieve what we wanted, although we kind of did in a way, because the nation was united, and that's the most important thing. We
Mhm.
finally felt ourselves as a nation, actually, and we started to care about how we live, who are our representatives. We started literally having this like social like connection with each other and society that actually functions and that actually cares about how we live, not cares enough to change and to try live a better life. This is, I think, is the most important thing, and I don't regret that, even if uh you know even if revolution brought afterwards very bad things for my country. I still think it was the right thing to do, to protect our democracy, to protect our rights, our freedoms, and to strive for a better life, for less corruption, for working institutions, which is something, human rights, obviously, which is something that European Union has and Western countries have, whereas Russia just doesn't. So yeah, this is just yeah.
But
Overall,
speaking,
Poroshenko was sort of like half success, half not, but I tend to not shit on him that much.
yeah, he was
Yeah.
better than Yanukovych, yeah, for sure. But speaking
Yeah,
of the
low bar,
Russophobic,
yeah.
yeah, low bar, true. But speaking of the
Mhm.
Russophobia, I mean, is Zelensky really that Russophobic? I mean,
No, that's why I didn't vote.
Yeah, you didn't? You actually didn't vote for
Yeah,
him?
I didn't vote for him. I was one of the few people in this country, apparently, who didn't vote for him, because absolute majority of people I know just voted for Zelensky. Not only they voted, they were actually excited about the vote. This is has not happened in history of Ukraine ever. So I was like a sore thumb, you know. But I was just very much afraid of him being too much of a centrist and to giving away to Russian silly demands. And I knew he was. No offense to our president, but kind of soft-hearted, you know. I don't know
Yeah.
how else to put it, but very like kind of like a, you know, this kind of man that I thought didn't have a spine to actually be a strong leader we needed in such like hard times, obviously. And also I thought of him as his whole thing was like centrist. I'm going to end this war. Like we are going to be friends with Russia again. And I was like, what? No, no.
He was like a
These
little bit
guys,
naive, yeah.
yeah, he was, but he also appealed to people who are like, kind of tired of this whole thing as
Yeah,
well, which
true.
which I personally kind of hate that for us, because you don't have, in my opinion, Ukrainians at the time had no right to be tired, because they didn't live in Donbass, they didn't suffer what we are suffering now. They suffered then, so I knew that because I was a volunteer and I had like family from Donbass actually living, two families in my apartment who escaped from Russia. So I was more invested and I didn't blame them that much. Many Ukrainians, unfortunately, blame Donbass kind of for like being, you're pro-Russian, they kind of deserved it, you know? So this was not all, obviously, but this was a pretty prevalent attitude, which I feel is wrong and felt wrong then. And so I was pretty much not happy with Zelensky's like idea of building bridges, so to speak, with someone who invaded and turned apart our like country, and thousands upon thousands of people lost their homes and were forced to, all of that. Not to mention just the way they purely treated us like subhuman garbage, not actually like a country, not Ukrainian identity is a disease of the mind and all of that. So I remember talking with my friends and I was like, aren't you worried? Aren't you worried that like a country this big, this militarized, hates us fucking so much and doesn't stop talking about how we are not a country, we are not people, we don't deserve to be like separate, we're actually part of Russian world and always have been. And they were like, well, they won't like attack us actually. And I was like, but they already did, you know.
They already
Why do you
did.
think
Yeah.
why do you think it's not going to go any further? And they was like, well, I don't know. They won't take Kharkiv. It's all good. You know, it's just
Yeah.
a naivety of people, I guess. People tend to, I guess you could say, be a little bit in denial about things like that, which
Yeah.
I understand. But someone who knew a little bit more about Russia and what they did in the East, I was not surprised by February 24 year to 2022. Not at all.
But you were
I think there
probably. Oh, yeah, Ben, you.
I think there are many people who try to project their values onto others, and that's why they say, "Oh, come on, this full scale war that goes too far." And I think many people, especially here in Germany, or maybe generally in Europe, underestimated that there's like this thinking. And I met this thinking back then because I had many family members who were involved in the Yugoslavian wars in the 90s. And there's this, and I remember I was very, very young at the time, but I remember at one time there's like this light switch which turns on, and then you like see, okay, those are Serbian nationalists and ethno nationalists. After Srebrenica and everything that happened there, that was the time I just realized there are people who have fundamentally different values, like they want to see in their life. They don't care if
Sure.
people die. If they grab the land back and leave a pile of corpses, they don't care. And in my
Yeah.
opinion, it's the same with Russia right now.
Yeah, for sure. It's just like you said, some people are just having a hard time. I think now, actually, in the West, in not longer in Ukraine, but I would like to point
Mm.
out, getting bombed and slaughtered and thrown in mass graves kind of tends to, cure this naive attitudes
Mm.
people
Yeah.
have. But in the West, I think there's like exactly like you said, many people just cannot accept this difference, like the monumental difference in values that just Russian now I believe is a fascist nation, unfortunately, has. And for them, the priority of imperialist expansion, of like return of the to the glorious days of whatever the heck, like Russian Empire, like Soviet Union 2.0 or something like that, is way more bigger priority to them than peace and prosperity of other people and neighbors around them, and also their own, because this hit them as well, obviously. And
Very
the
hard,
most
yeah.
thing, yeah, and it's what's the most like I guess you could say strange to me thing is just how absolutely cruel and I don't know even how to call it. It's not even like cruelty. They just don't give a shit about their own people who are dying here. I don't care about them because they're invaders and I want them gone from my country, right? But they just don't care about like the thousands of 200,000 soldiers that more plus that already were killed, and it is just they're people, right? They're somebody's like sons and brothers and friends and whatever, right? And just the pure lack of care for those people is just always like shows to me like where the mindset is, because the worst thing actually on earth to watch is Russian mothers. I mean,
Mm.
it's worse than Putin. You can watch like their how they speak about their sons who were like in a meat grinder basically and died in Ukraine,
Mm.
and just the callousness, like the lack of like maternity, like oh, it's very 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 depressing. Honestly,
Do you
I
mean those mothers who are just put in front of state media then and say, "Oh yeah, I'm so happy I got this Lada
no,
from the
not
state,"
even
or
that.
something? Huh?
Those you can at least think it's a performance, right? Because it's for
Yeah.
the state media, right? But just regular people, like I speak Russian, so I can watch their like what they say, like on media, what they post on Telegram, what they write on forums, and it's just such a
Ah. Mm.
callousness. It's
Mm.
just it's very like what they show, like I don't even think it can be expressed without actually seeing it. So yeah, it's just very very staggering. I cannot imagine like being like a mother and saying like, whatever, my son died, who cares, I have more, like go die for your mother Russia. It's
Mm.
just how do you do that? It's very confusing to me.
Yeah. Someone's saying the glory of there's some similarities to the USA. They're so dug up into the Russian propaganda that it's just the glorious thing to die for your nation. Probably something like that.
Yeah.
Some sort of coping mechanism for perhaps.
There's also this thing that I would like to put. I hate to actually make excuses for Russians, but this time I will do it. I apologize, but to Ukrainian and to everyone. But basically, they don't send their best. Let's put it like that. They send people from a very marginalized,
Yeah.
very poor areas. So for some people there, it's just like it's actually a step up from their life to get to be like get payment for being like a soldier, and even dying for them is a step up because their relatives might actually get some stuff. It's just the level of poverty there in the areas. You would rarely catch a soldier from Moscow, or from St.
Mm.
Petersburg. Most of them are like from the again, excuse me, but Asian areas of Russia. So like where people like Buryaty live, for example, who are marginalized as it is and mistreated as it is, and also are very poor.
Yeah.
So they would send those people like easily to their death, and for those people, it might even seem like a good idea actually. So not that I said like I excuse them raping and tormenting and killing civilians, obviously, right? Like they did in Bucha, for example. But I can kind of like understand that for them, it's just might be their only chance of getting out of that incredibly shitty life they're living there. So
Yeah,
there's that.
Mm.
it's also a very interesting point if you actually follow what is happening in Russia. That's like a tradition to just recruit from the minority communities and to also target minority communities. So like minority languages and something where Russia is very open to criticize other nations if the Russian speaking community is attacked or their language. But in Russia, they are just straight up killing languages. So it's
Mm.
very fascinating.
Obviously.
Yeah.
And not just in Russia, like in Soviet Union and Russian Empire, they were killing languages of people that were part of the Russian Empire and Soviet Union. They tried
Yeah.
to do it in Ukraine. They succeeded in Belarus, by the way. And yeah, so it's just something almost killed the language. Almost nobody speaks it at this point. So yeah, it's just for them. It's a very kind of like although there are proof of that, and there is no proof of them of anyone prosecuting Russian speakers in Ukraine because like half the country is fucking Russian speakers like me, and I've
Yeah.
not been prosecuted in my entire life. Yeah, so it's just yeah, it's very much a thing they do. For example, like you probably guys know, but there even in Russian Empire days there were like things like Emsky Ukaz or Valuev Circular, which are laws that were made in Russian Empire that prohibited typing books in Ukrainian languages, teaching children Ukrainian in schools, so
Like
like
at all.
education in
Yeah.
Ukraine.
Like at all. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they even at Emsky, I think, was just about the education, but well, or the other way around, whatever. One of them was about education, the other one was even then about just poetry or like literature, like just regular literature was also prohibited in Ukrainian. So the guy who actually created this law, Valuev, his name is on the law. He actually said like Ukrainian did not exist, it doesn't exist, and it will not exist. Cute, right? So this is like just something you can see basically in today's Russia easily. This type of rhetoric you can just see like the Valuev saying the same thing in Russia today. It's not that different in that regard. So yeah, this was like and they succeeded too. Like I speak Russian not because I chose to. It's because this part of Ukraine, east and partially south, was heavily Russified during Russian Empire days, and afterwards in Soviet Union there were no laws on the books that prohibited language, but it was like soft discrimination. So people would laugh at you, people would call you rural and stupid, and if you spoke Ukrainian, you were like a dumb from a village. Let's put it like that, right?
Yeah.
And you would not get any opportunities. You would not get any positions of power. You would not get decent jobs anywhere. So pretty much all you had to do is to assimilate and speak Russian, become Russian, abandon your heritage, pretty much abandon your culture, and then you might have like a semi decent life. So that's what people did, and this is why my surname is the way it is, because it is actually a Greek one, but it was Russified. So it was that ova thing in the end
Yeah.
of my name is to make it sound Russian. This is something they did. People did not only like it was not people did just to have a decent life. So I don't know if that is offensive to anyone, but like basically like trans thing, pass as Russian. I don't know how else to explain it. So you can mask yourself as a Russian, and then your life might be a little bit more decent, which is something that my father's family did because he was way too Greek to have a decent life, and he still was put, by the way, on a suspicious list. He was added on a list of suspicious people just because he was Greek. So yeah, things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, it's also prevalent in Bulgaria. I think there is like there are nearly no names that don't end on ova or on ov.
Mm.
It's very prevalent also, or maybe in the Turkish
Yeah,
minorities, but yeah.
also like cultural appropriation, which Americans like to talk about, but this is actually it, not like white people with dreads, but actual cultural appropriation. So they would basically steal like anyone of value from that nation. For example, famous artist Ivazovsky, right? Everyone knows him in the world as Russian. Do you know what his actual surname is? Ivazyan. He was Armenian. Nobody knows that because he became Russian, so to speak. So in a bunch of artists, musicians, scientists, writers, like all people of like any cultural value would just be culturally appropriated. So they would be called Russians. Their names would be changed to sound Russian, and they would just be known in the world as Russian because only Russians can have great culture, right?
Yeah.
So people, it also affected us as well as people because I remember like when I was at school, I'm in, Kharkiv is like a Russian speaking, obviously, place. And I remember like people like my classmates, like children in school would just dunk like on everything Ukrainian, because it was not cool. And I was like, what the hell? Like, what is going on? And they were like, well, who wants to be part like Ukrainian when they're like all the great like authors, all the great people are Russian, and we are like nobodies. And this actually affects like people, obviously, right?
Yeah.
And I remember like doing some research and just and just this one is not Russian, this one is not Russian, this one is not Russian. Oh, this one is also not Russian. And I was shocked. I never knew that. I always thought they were Russian, and they weren't. So, yep.
Yeah. Or maybe to delve into that, the law on languages in Ukraine. How was that like in Kharkiv? Because the Russian speaking minority is also always pointed out like, oh, they hated this law. And have you seen this news article or this video of the lady who said, oh no, I can't speak the bakery. Yeah, I can't.
That lady, one lady. Yeah, I know her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys, this is the time to admit that Ukraine hates Russian language, and I was terribly prosecuted. No, I wasn't. The terrible prosecution I personally faced as that nasty person who didn't speak a word of Ukrainian was that when I order pizza, after those laws, there were like two options to choose: Ukrainian and Russian. That was terrible. I still have not recovered. When you speak with to order pizza, you just this choice on its own, it's heartbreaking. Instead of it just being Russian, there was Ukrainian. And you know what's the worst thing? It was the first language, not the second.
Yeah.
Imagine that. So this is basically the extent of it, without even making jokes. It's just that what it was. There was like they tried to elevate Ukrainian and make it like the first option, and the second option could be like Russian. The third option would be English, something like that, right? So they tried to elevate Ukrainian, which was prosecuted for decades in this part of the country, and I supported all of that. And the only thing, you were free to speak Russian anywhere, absolutely anywhere. The only thing you were not allowed to was basically politicians should speak Ukrainian in Ukraine. So this is the official language of the country, and they should know it, and they should be like pretty much know it and speak it freely, which I totally support. Like nobody is fucking surprised that Lukashenko, president of Belarus, speaks Russian. Nothing weird there, right? So yeah, Yanukovych spoke Russian, by the way, and so this was good in my opinion. So politicians had to know Ukrainian and speak it. Also, if you have like some official documentation, for example, papers, things like that, they also would be in Ukrainian. That's about it. So the rest of it is also services. If you like receive services, let's say you will go into a shop or something, and the person who like works there as a seller should greet you like in Ukrainian. And if you talk with them back in Russian, they are free to speak Russian after that. So hardly the prosecution like everyone described. So, for example, I would go in the shop and people would tell to me in Ukrainian "Добрий день," right? Like hello, basically. And then I would continue speaking in Russian, and they just immediately are free to continue the conversation in whatever language I'm speaking. So hardly like oppression, And other than that, it's just it was a time.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also very weird. It's also very weird hearing that, because in Germany we obviously don't have this conversation. Everything here is in German. Maybe in the fringes, if you live near France or near Poland, maybe then. But other than that, it's not really discussed much.
And everything in German. Yeah.
Yeah,
here,
maybe.
Example.
Yeah, I know in Bulgaria that many people also in the southern part speak Turkish, but it's. I mean, obviously, kind of, because also of the Ottoman Empire and everything.
Yeah, obviously, right. My father actually spoke Turkish, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's yeah.
Yeah,
because of that, because he was Greek.
Yeah, and this conversation is only applied to Ukraine, and in this very weird fashion where, oh yeah, people want to speak Ukrainian after decades of prosecution, and the country is just completely Russified. Oh no, how could they even like, they want to have something back? Oh no. And also with the TV stations and the quotas to actually make it that Ukraine has its own radio and everything. I'm just reading that and I'm like this must be so sad as a country that you have to actually fight for something that's so normal in every other country.
Yes, it is.
Even stronger. For example, you have like in France, you have, like radio stations, they have to put out like 60-70% French music, like before English or something. No, the first time I heard about those
French,
Russian laws, I thought, and that's so stunning to me, because I thought, when I found out, holy shit, they're just straight up lying to you in your face. Because I thought the same as you just discussed. Holy shit, if you speak Russian, there's like special forces mowing everyone
No.
down.
Yeah, no.
And it's just like, okay, we live in this country, so the first language should be also from this country. That's
I know,
it.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's such a
Awful, awful.
no-brainer.
Yeah, it's very interesting, as a Ukrainian, sometimes it feels like even people who are like not pro-Russian, like you said, that you feel like you have to fight for basic shit that is
Mhm.
allowed to everyone else, but not us for some reason. So when I talk with people, they would be like, "Oh, like a lot of people speak Russian," and be like, "And." you know and they just basically imply people like Hassan, for example, if you know who it is, very
Mhm.
not famous person. So
Sadly, yeah.
yeah. So he basically was like, they speak Russian there. They're Russians, and I was like, what? What? What the hell? What the hell? So it's just so confusing. Speaking Russian language because you have been forcefully Russified for decades, it doesn't mean you're Russian. Also doesn't
Yeah.
allow Russia to invade and take your fucking land. What the hell? So yeah, it's just very weird that you have to like. I remember having like the weirdest conversations when I started Twitter. Basically, it was recently, but I
Yeah.
started. I found myself trying to prove to people that Ukrainian and Russian were different languages, and I was like, what am I even doing? Like why
Mhm.
I'm even trying to to prove something to these people? Like, even if it was incredibly similar, like for example, like you know uh, Swedish or like Norwegian or like Danish are very similar. They're like incredibly similar. They even
Mhm.
understand like each other. Basically, nobody says they don't need to be different countries because of that.
Yeah.
It's just why it's very, very strange. Not to mention that it is actually hella different. But
Yeah,
it's like
it is
another story. Yeah,
very
yeah.
different. I,
It's
yeah, in Bulgarian, I
Isn't it
kind
kind
of,
of like
yeah,
just
man.
culture? Isn't it like in former Yugoslavia or Bulgaria, like Serbs kind of understand Bulgarian
Croatia.
somehow,
Uh,
or
uh,
Croatia?
mhm.
Slovenia is kind of different because they use many different words. But for example, Montenegrin, where my parents are from, there's like no big difference. You like kind of hear it more often not because of some local dialects. So if you are at the border region from Montenegro to Serbia, it's just like no problem. But when my parents would likely talk to someone from northern Serbia or Novi Sad, for example, Vojvodina, they kind of hear it. That's like a different dialect.
Mm. Yeah,
It's like basically, right?
my dialect is not that good in Bulgarian. But I
No,
can
I actually
understand.
understand Bulgarian quite well. Not
Oh,
all, obviously, but because Russian is a bit similar to Bulgarian, way more
yeah.
actually than it is to Ukrainian. So
Yeah,
yeah, so
that's the one part. Yeah, I'm trying to speak. So I have in my volleyball team. I play volleyball here.
mm.
There is a
Oh,
woman who actually fled from Mariupol.
oh,
And
I see.
she always tries to speak Ukrainian to me, and I'm like, I I can understand Russian a little bit, but
Yeah, it's different.
Ukraine and
Yeah.
Bulgaria just doesn't mix at all. They're
Yeah,
like,
very different.
Mhm.
I only understand Bulgarians because I know Russian. But
yeah,
if I didn't, I would be pretty hard. I then when I try to defend the honor of Ukrainian language for some fucking stupid reason,
yeah,
because as if they were like similar, that kind of somehow excuses the invasion. But I tried at the first, and I actually did some research, and I discovered that actually pretty different, because linguistical difference between Ukrainian and Russian is as between Italian and French. So quite different.
Mhm.
yeah,
Or like, for example, like Spanish and French. So they're like have some sort of similarities, like Latin languages do, for example. Slavic languages tend to have like some similarities, obviously, but it's pretty different. It's pretty damn different. Yeah.
yeah.
So I would actually do stupid things, like I would argue with people, like tell them words in Ukrainian that they're different. Then I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, who
Like mother,
cares? Like, are they?
yeah, like Ukraine
Yeah.
being motherland, and in Russian it's like what was it? The Russian propaganda
Oh, yeah.
has another name for it.
Isn't
Um,
it Mother Russia?
No,
Or
not
what do
Mother
you
Russia,
mean?
or
Rodina, you mean, like, or what?
Grenzland. I don't know what
Borderlands?
borderland. Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
The propaganda, the borderland thing. Yeah, it's just I talked with it about actually because people still repeat that shit. I even think I heard Hassan saying that. I'm not sure, but I think so. So yeah. So basically, what they say is like, let me kind of like explain it in like for your viewers and for you guys because the word in Ukraine, the world, like your country, like your homeland, is
Yeah.
Kraina. So Ukraina is how we say Ukraine actually. So Ukraina is your country. So it's like Deutschland. It's like
Yeah. It's
Finland,
self-explanatory.
England. Yeah. So it's everyone basically, not everyone, but many people have like names like that. So, but Russians, since they're brain dead, they actually think that everything is in Russian and everything. So they
Yeah.
think that the world, they don't have the word Kraina in Rush. In the world for country is strana.
Duh.
So it's completely different word. Like Kraina, strana, completely different. So they have the word Okraina, which similar to Kraina, but in Russian it means like borderlands, like outskirts.
Yeah.
So they pretended basically that the Ukraina is that word Ukraina, but in Ukrainian the word Kraina means country, your homeland. So it's completely like just the different language, but they use it. Also, it's kind of fun that we are borderlands when we existed on the map when they didn't,
Yeah, true.
kind of strange. Hard to be borderlands of the empire that didn't exist, so yeah, there's
Now
that.
I get it because in the civil war in Yugoslavia there was like this in Croatia, this like proto, I don't know, puppet state from Serbia. It was called Srpski Krajina, and it was
Hmm.
like the border or the
Yeah,
outer
actually,
layer,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
from
Serbian is also similar to Russian, more similar to Russian. So Bulgaria, Serbia, and Russia is way more similar
mm,
language-wise than actually Ukrainian is way similar, more similar to Poland, by the
To
way.
Polish,
Polish, sorry.
yeah, true.
Yeah. Not exactly the same, but quite
yeah.
similar. So it's
And
a bit different.
Belarusian, is Belarusian
Oh yeah,
quite similar to Ukrainian?
this this is actually, but if according to linguists, is the most similar language in there is like there's like 40% difference, 14% difference, something like that.
Oh,
So very
okay.
similar. Yeah, but it's barely exists at this point, so kind of hard to, you know,
Yeah.
talk about it. Yeah.
You will probably have to help them one day. Maybe, hopefully.
Let us deal with our shit at first,
Yeah, true.
please. Yeah, it's too hard. Sometimes people say like, "Oh, you should like help Russia," and I'm like, "No, no. We're not doing anything to help them. Let them save their asses for once
Yeah.
themselves. Yeah, if they want to.
Or
Yeah, I
yeah,
doubt it. I doubt it. Yeah."
maybe to talk a little bit about the future. Are you going to stay in your journalistic-esque field, or do you have any other plans after the war is ended and you've finally won?
Very kind of you to call me a journalist of some sort. Definitely don't feel like I'm a journalist. I'm like a weird spokesperson with green hair. So yeah, so it's just I mostly what I see myself as right now as a volunteer primarily because I do volunteer work most of the time and I just buy things for like a bunch of stuff like drones, scopes, cars, quad bikes, like thermal wear, vests, protective gear, and hemostatic dressings, whatever, right? What they need, I buy power banks and I deliver it and help others to deliver it to the front lines. It takes most of my time. So I also speak with people,
Yeah,
sometimes like now. Yeah, but mostly I just and fight with commies on Twitter now apparently too. But that's another thing. So yeah, this is like what I do. I also sometimes do work as a fixer, which is like a profession basically that you help journalists to get places and
Mm,
Ukrainians just translate for them, order food for them, get them places, look after their silly foreign asses so they don't get blown up, things like that. Just babysit them basically is what you
yeah,
do. So sometimes I do that as well for
mm.
for people like Dylan. I kind of do it like for free, as a friend. Dylan
true.
Burns, if like
Yeah,
someone knows him.
we
Yeah.
know him, yeah.
And for other people, I do it for money sometimes, and yeah, but mostly for free. That's another story. So yeah, basically that's what I do. So journalism, I wouldn't like call myself like a journalist. It's more like I kind of help journalists to get like
Mm.
material and photos and videos, and also I do like kind of like interviews with them, things like that. Also translate stuff for Dylan, for example. I do subtitles for his videos sometimes. Yeah. So if his video has a good quality subtitles, that's me. If
Very
it has
good.
bad, it's not me. So yeah. Anyhow, self promotion moment. But anyhow, yeah. This is just. I kind of see myself as continuing to I don't know, like being maybe like a spokesperson for Ukraine in the future as well, in some regard, because there's like a lot of
Mhm.
work to do, with the restoration, and I think the informational war will not stop even if we win. So there's like that, and yeah. But overall, I kind of want to return to my normal life, with just no like explosions and war and shit like that. I would be
Mm.
probably would prefer it in a way.
Yeah.
People want me to stream and to do YouTube shit, but I'm like thinking about it. I'm not like convinced that I want to do it so far. Yeah.
Why not?
Well, currently I just am way too busy to even start
Yeah, currently, yeah.
understanding how all of it works. But in the future, I don't know. Like I just feel like a granny that wants to retire.
Ah, okay.
Mm.
That's also
Yeah,
good.
yeah, I'm not sure. Like, it's kind of fun in some ways, but also kind of not. Like today was not fun, because of the just I criticized the person who posted like some, in my opinion, silly stuff about his obsession with Ukrainian patches and making like this basically like forward in Russian propaganda about Ukrainian being Nazis. And as a result of that, I just got swarmed by like people calling me a Nazi, and my finger hurts from blocking them. So yeah, I'm not sure if I want to like live that type of life. I'm not sure, to be quite honest with you, but
I-
it may happen. May happen. I don't know.
I mean, you don't have to
Yeah.
argue on Twitter. You can just stream where you can mostly ignore that.
Yeah. True, but there'll be like people calling me Nazi whore there too, right? So
Yeah, but you
so
can
so yeah,
have
if you
help modding. You can have help.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's true. Oh, I had a person who could block them on Twitter. That would be legendary.
yeah,
But I
something like
had to
that.
do that myself. Yeah, I have to do that myself. So the fingers hurt. Yeah, anyhow, I don't know, honestly. I think about it. I have been encouraged mostly but by Destiny's community, who is my
Mm.
main body right now in terms of help. His community gave me basically almost entirely sponsored my volunteer work. Like every now and
Mm.
then, other different donations, but most of it is them. So yeah, I interact with them quite a lot, and I they kind of like me apparently. I like them as well. So yeah, so it works, and I'm super grateful for their help, obviously, because if it wasn't for them, I would be able to.
Mm.
Never imagined I would be able to do any of that, to be quite honest, because it's just insane amount of things I managed to buy. The
Didn't
amount
you
of
say
money.
last time? Didn't you say last time that you were able to buy like like an insane amount of medical equipment, for example?
Oh yeah, you mean like
Yeah.
hemostatic dresses? Yeah, I said that
Yeah. Yeah.
it's about like 2,000 we bought so far, which each one
Mm.
of them is like nine something dollars, so
Mhm.
nine and something, which is very very expensive, kind of hard to buy because a regular like dressings that people use are way cheaper and it's easier to come around, but these are like top notch quality. They stop like incredibly severe bleeding, like almost deadly bleeding, and they also don't need to be removed from the wound. So it's pretty cool,
Mm.
and it's very very incredibly important because our like medics who tried this stuff, they told me that this is just a life savior because they can just stick it there and just next person. It's like it's
Yeah.
war, it's crazy, like people are wounded all over the place, dying all over the place, and medics are
Yeah.
just trying to save lives, running around, and having such things as this is very useful. But they only, I think, are made in United States and also are sold there exclusively, maybe Canada as well, but
Mm.
I get them
Mhm.
from US. And these hemostatic dressings, Hitazan they called, actually, I think. Yeah, some medical is the brand. They only use it in dire situation, so they try to save them because they're so useful, and they use them like if the person is about to die, basically.
Mm.
So in that regard, they used all 2,000 we bought. So you can probably then imagine that this just saved 2,000 lives, most
Holy
likely.
shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is
Wow.
just to understand like the gravity. People say, "Oh, it's such a little help. Like, who cares, right? You're doing very
Yeah.
little, like me as a volunteer, right?" So, but I was like, "Well, no, 2,000 lives is not little. It's
Yeah.
not little whatsoever." So yeah, it's just Not to mention like drones and things like that, obviously. But just this particular thing, you could totally say it's Destiny's community did that. Yeah. So yeah. So I'm super grateful and forever will be. There's no
Yeah,
question about that. Yeah.
yeah, only heard good things about DGG.
Don't do
Someone
that
needs to
bad.
praise them. Someone will
Yeah.
be me, because people shit on those guys. Yeah, but for me, they were like literal like angels because they just did. I can't even
Mm.
believe it. Like I managed to raise like at this point around 4 million in our like currency in Ukrainian hryvnia. But
Yeah,
in dollars, it would be like something like I don't know, like 70, 80,000 maybe dollars.
that's still very much. Yeah.
It's so much. Like for Ukrainian, it's just insane. My job paid me $400 per month. So for me, it's not possible to. It's not bad by Ukrainian standards, by the way, but it's just insane amount of money, and I managed to put them all to volunteer work, and it's just
Mm.
I'm super happy about it. Even got myself gratitude letters from cool scouts
Very nice.
saying I'm cool. Yeah, I can
That's
actually.
great.
I show it to everyone, so why not you?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is my little gratitude
Yeah,
list.
awesome.
Yeah, it says
Just
podяka, which means gratitude in Ukrainian. Yeah,
can you
they
read
say
it,
like
Kircho?
I can read the
no, I
Kinda?
letters.
don't.
I
I
can
don't
read the
think so.
letters, but I can read that it's Podyaka, but I don't know what it means.
Yeah, but it is very small, kind of hard to see. But it basically says like I'm cool, is what it says.
Yeah, true.
No, it doesn't say I'm cool, but it says like we can feel you on the front lines with us, and we're very grateful.
Mm.
Basically, like cute shit like that. So
One
yeah,
day you will hang
scouts.
it
Oh, maybe yeah.
in a
Scouts are my
frame.
faves actually. Yeah, I worked with them quite a bit. Yeah, I bought some scopes, drones for them as well, and that's why they were grateful about it. I never thought I would be buying drones and scopes. With a lady, but
Mm.
it is what it is. I'm not a drone expert apparently. So yeah.
So I think 1 month ago, our Minister of Economics, I think, was in Ukraine, like Robert Habeck,
Mm.
and I don't know if yeah, and he said that
That's the
one
name.
line, yeah, and he said the line that he's terribly, or or that he feels guilty that Germany didn't do enough to help Ukraine, like militarily,
Aw.
with deliveries and everything. And I think even after what happened in the past, for example, Yugoslavia, for example, you have a clear aggression, you have even genocide, anything, and years later, people here are like, I can't even describe it. How people just don't care if injustice happens. I
Mhm.
really don't get it.
It's
Yeah.
very nice. I didn't hear it. What minister that said. It's pretty nice to hear because some
Mm.
people, I must say, have been very critical of Germany. You probably know because of all this like leopard tanks thing
I
and
mean, we are too, yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's just I am as well. Sometimes I'm like when I get like this salty mood. I sometimes will like be like a granny, angry granny, and just be salty about everything. But overall, I'm just super grateful that people even care. Because to be honest, I didn't expect it. You might say I've been a little bit of a pessimist because I
Mm.
100% knew Russia will attack, and I also was almost 100% certain that the world would do nothing. So I
Yeah.
was certain it will be like Moldova, Georgia type of situation when they annexed and killed quite a lot of people and ruined people's lives and cities, and nothing came out of it. But then Ukraine in 2014, they kind of got a slap on the wrist, something like bad, Russia bad, but that's about it. And I kind of hoped, or not hoped, but I thought this would be like similar situation, and I was pleasantly,
Mm.
obviously, surprised that it wasn't. And lucky for us, people actually cared, and yeah, maybe not like you know as perfectly as some people want, but better than nothing, that's for sure. So I can't even imagine how shitty things would have been for us without like the support. And yeah.
Yeah, but I also
Also,
think
yeah.
this was to a huge part due to the performance of the Ukrainian army in the beginning.
Mm.
It was just that was just not seen before. I think how Russia failed and how Ukraine just managed to fend them off, and I think that
Yeah,
also
based.
sparked the momentum.
Yeah,
Not even
thank you
fend off,
actually
but
for.
take, I think, territory back in a greater extent than Russia did.
Also,
But
that yeah,
that's the fear I have is if Russia would have taken Ukraine, for example, in like this 10 days, I think that this would have been the thing that would have happened. Like Europe wouldn't care. Like, okay, there's
Hmm.
some
Yeah.
sanctions and everything, blah blah blah. All Putin, that's bad. But basically, like kind of the same after the Crimea annexation and the war in the east of Ukraine.
yeah.
That's like basically that's I don't know what to say, but it's like so sad how people just don't give a shit uh, because their gas was heißt nochmal Rechnung? Bileti? Was heißt Kircho? What does it mean? Like their gas prices go up too
The gas
fast.
prices go up. Yeah.
But but and I had the same discussions here, and I said like, hey, there are people dying there. What the fuck is the problem? Like then you have to pay like a little bit more because there are people dying here not far away from you. Yeah, that's like kind of
Well,
the thing I don't understand. Never.
I actually super agree with you that people wouldn't care if they managed to take us quite fast, as people said, like 3 days or something like predicted, right?
Yeah.
Ukraine will fall, basically, is what everyone kind of thought. But in a sense, I understand that people. Well, it's just common sense. People in Europe were waiting to see what the hell is going to happen, right? If
Mm,
Ukraine is going to fall like immediately, why the hell will you give them weapons? You would just give them to Russia. So what's the point of
Yeah.
like arming and supporting Ukraine if you're just going to end up supporting Russia? And yeah, so when people actually saw that we were capable of actually, and there was the will of people to defend ourselves, like with everything, honestly, we had at that time. So you said like our army was effective, but wasn't actually our army that defended us in the beginning. It was territorial defense, which is territoriальная оборона is territorial defense in English, is basically just civilians who took arms. Those were the people who defended the cities. It was not even regular army. Regular army was not really prepared even, which is Zelensky fuck up, by the way. I know people. It's very popular to exclusively praise the guy, and he kind of deserves it. Not gonna lie, but this was something that he basically, his administration, like until the very end of it, kind of I was like coping and thought that this was not going to happen basically,
Yeah.
and our army was not exactly in the positions we needed them to be, quite honest. And
mm,
also not to mention the fact, like, oh, like I talk with our army, like, and people all the time, and basically people who protected Kiev, Kharkiv, major cities were all territorial defense. Like people who stopped Russia in Kharkiv actually were all just regular people who took arms. So yeah,
mm,
it's pretty phenomenal in my opinion. Not to hype us up too much, but this is indeed like very much phenomenal, especially second greatest army,
Yeah.
Russia, everything. So considering that, it's just something that magical that did happen. I told this story like a bunch of times, but it's a good story, so who cares? Basically, the first day, I was very terrified that they will take Kharkiv, occupy it, and I was like kind of preparing myself to live in occupation, which probably would have ended in my death, honestly. But that's like another story, because they just find people who like were at Maidan, who were like very proactive, who are very pro-Ukrainian. Just yeah, they just kill them or like imprison them. On It's just another story. But I was like preparing for that, and I called my best buddy actually, and who is is fighting right now. He enlisted, and I called him and I was like, "What are we doing? What are we doing?" And from Donbass, and he escaped back in 2014 to Kharkiv, and he was like, "What the fuck else can we do? We're going to fight. Obviously, we're going to defend ourselves. So they're not getting this country. They're not getting this yard. They're not getting this shitty shop. They're not getting you. They're not getting anyone." And I was like, "Okay, so are you going to do what? Like be a volunteer or enlist?" And he was like, "I'm enlisting right now. I'm like in line actually." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
mhm,
And he was like, They like took my home once from me. I escaped. It didn't help. They continue to, move forward, and they won't stop. They need to be stopped and escaping, and giving them what they want doesn't help. So we need to fight back. And he showed me pictures of lines of people, lines, like kilometers of people, just regular people enlisting in Kharkiv. And I was like, oh, I just breathed out because I understood that people are actually willing to defend this country and willing to fight and willing to do very, very, very tough things to defend it. So I kind of felt like it's going to be okay. They're not going to occupy us. If people are so brave and so great to go and fight, then we will most definitely not fall as people predict us to fall. So yeah, this is basically what kind of happened. And after that, I think some time has passed, and we start getting a little bit of here and there, like anti-tank weapons, things like that. Probably like not we actually requested, so like not no heavy artillery, no heavy at the beginning, no heavy weapons, no like anti-air, which we severely needed, but still like kind of it felt like people were looking and seeing like, oh yeah, this is like going somewhere. Potentially Russia will not win and we can actually invest in this project, which sounds kind of cynical, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And
The Pentagon
yeah, so
actually like retracted 2 statements, I think. I think after 2 weeks they were like, yeah, maybe they can fend off Russia for some extent of time. And then 2 months
yeah.
later they were like, okay, maybe they can also like retake some land from Russia if we support them. Yeah. It's very
Yeah,
funny.
yeah, we did. Yeah, it's actually sometimes I talk about it with people like who I know personally in my life, and sometimes I feel like a little bit salty that we did not receive the weapons fast enough to start counteroffensives, because maybe my father would not be killed if it happened, because after counteroffensives, Kharkiv counteroffensives were successfully launched, and they pretty much like liberated Kharkivska Oblast, I think in like a week, so something like that, weekend in something. And if after that, the shelling of Kharkiv, it reduced like insanely, like 90% of the shelling was done because they used artillery to shell the city, and they couldn't reach with artillery anymore because they were pushed away.
Yeah.
And they mostly use like C-300 missiles from Belgorod, stuff like that. This we cannot do much about. They continue to use it, obviously, but artillery you can push away, and they start using it. And my father was killed with artillery, exactly, so with Smerch, Russian Smerch.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I remember like talking with him just I think a day before or 2 days, something like that. Yeah. So I talked with him, and I was like, and it was like, when all those counteroffensives are going to start, like when the Kharkiv Oblast is going to liberate. He's so waited on it, and just yeah. So sometimes I think about it, just if we got those like weapons faster, maybe so many people would have been killed. But
Yeah.
but then I think it's just no point, thinking about it like that. Just if we received, it's just it
It's
is what it is, and you have
it's
to
also
deal with
very
what you
funny,
have.
yeah. It's also very funny that in our propaganda machine, also people are like, oh, we are going to fuel the war if we actually send stuff. And there are actually some kind of statistics about that, where
Uh,
if you actually see it, the more the more you give Ukraine, the more they are capable and able to defend their citizens. So the casualty numbers actually drop over time
mhm.
because of the equipment the Ukrainian army is getting. And that's just wow.
Yeah, it's just so strange. At this point, it's just I'm not gonna lie, it just pisses me off to like no end. I always try to, to power through and not scream at people, but it's just very hard because it's so false, first of all, and second of all, it's just how can you imagine that like idea even? So just admit you want Russia like to take over fast and just don't see us anymore in your news.
Yeah.
Just admit that. It's easy as that. Just admit I don't give a shit about that fucking Ukraine. Okay, it's a position. I
It
don't
would be
really.
honest. Yeah, it would be honest.
Yeah, yeah. At least I don't kind of like enjoy this position, obviously, as a Ukrainian Kharkiv,
True, yeah.
but I understand it, and I can, understand it. It's just honest. It seems to be like, you don't care. Okay, you don't care. So, but then they don't say it. They don't say it because it kind of sounds bad, makes them sound kind of bit not very highly moral people. So instead of that, they say like, oh, we actually like a fuel in the war by giving them weapons, by even giving them weapons to not do Bucha, Irpin, and Izum in every city. Yeah, you giving us giving us weapons prevents that from being every city of Ukraine.
Yeah.
Kherson and other people like that, in other cities like that. Every little like village and city we discover has mass torture, mass imprisonment, mass graves, torture and killing of civilians, mass rape, whatever it is. In some areas worse than others, for sure. But I just recently have been in Izium with Devin, who is like American photographer and videographer, and I just been there with him, basically posted some stuff about it on Twitter. So yeah, it's just things like that. This is the biggest mass grave since the Yugoslavia genocide, and it's just that's what you leave us to. If we don't liberate like territories, it's also important to understand we don't liberate cities and villages. This is just not, people talk about it like it's just land,
Yeah.
who cares, like it's just no, it's not. There are like people there right now who are waiting for liberation. So yeah, for people in Kherson, for example, I honestly have not seen a happier person than after liberation of Kherson. Those like people who were just dancing, celebrating, singing. They had like no gas, no electricity, no heat, no water, no internet. It was cold, incredibly unpleasant, but they were just dancing like near the fire, singing Ukrainian songs, just celebrating because they were liberated. And this is just, you can't leave people to that life. It's not right. So yeah, so for us, for me, liberation is people first and foremost. It's not just land and territory. It's just people who wait every day for us to finally stop this fucking nightmare. So it's just like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So people don't see it like that, I guess. When they talk about it, they just don't really understand that. They just feel like it's who cares, like just I don't know. I don't know how you
Just
feel it like
yeah,
that.
just give up the border, yeah. So
Yeah,
maybe
it's just
maybe to
yeah.
also
Sorry.
you were also talking about enlistment. There are also some conspiracy stuff going around about recruitment on the street in Ukraine, that people are just like, oh, you're just joining the army. That's not happening, right?
Nope. No, not really. Pretty much every single person I talk to as a volunteer, and I talk with quite a lot of army people. All of them enlisted voluntarily. Sure, there might have been some people that have been enlisted because they had like prior expertise in the army, for example, or they have like some kind of professions that jobs, that just make them automatically like basically they just have to serve. There's like no other way around it. But most people, the absolute majority, was obviously volunteers and enlisted themselves, or were already in the army also, obviously, because they're fights
Yeah,
at Donbass
Wasn't
for
it
quite
like in
such
the
a
beginning that like the territorial and defense ministry both said there are too many people trying to
yes.
enlist?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Way too many people try to enlist. Basically, my friend who I talked about, he actually
Mm,
couldn't enlist on the first day because there were so many people, and also
yeah.
nobody wanted to. So he came there just to understand the drive actually of people. And he came here 4 days in a row. Like 4 days in a row, he would try to enlist, and then he would like message me very angry messages with a lot of swearing, and he was like, basically, you can't even fucking die for this country, what the hell. They don't want me. And I was like, man, like what's going on? And they actually kind of like tried to deny him because he's blind in one eye. So when he was a
Mm,
kid, a child, his father, he was from Donbass, and his father, by the way, pro-Russian dude who ended up dying fighting for Donbass. Great story. But he was like an alcoholic, and he beaten up him severely when he was a
oh,
child. So he
yeah.
smashed his head up to the wall one time, and that made him lose sight in his eye. So
Uh-huh.
he kind of like basically sort of disabled in that regard. And but it's still he, and they were like, dude, you like can't shoot and everything. And he was, I can, I really can. And he can, and he does. He's a great at shooting stuff. But he's just was like, take me, I can like do things. I know like I'm pretty like physically fit, and I'm good at shooting things. I can be useful, I can be helpful. And they eventually, he basically like tired them tired them down, and they enlisted him. Same thing with my buddy Igor, who is like an older man who I like work with. He's a family friend, he's a volunteer, and he delivers most of stuff I buy to the front actually.
Mm,
So he also
mm,
tried to enlist it so fucking hard. He was like just trying and trying and trying. And his friend, his childhood friend Yegor, he was in the army since 2014. So he was already experienced soldier, and he was a commander at that point. So he basically would deny all his requests. of his friend, so he couldn't get enlisted. And then when Igor found out, he was like, "Man, why have you been like sabotaging my attempts?" And Igor told him like, "You're ill, man. You have like a severely bad health, so you have like surgeries that just you cannot be here. It's not right. Just do something else. Be a volunteer, help in another way, but you're just going to die there, and just no point of it." So yeah, things like that. So people even with like severe health issues are trying to enlist. So yeah, so this is just something like
Mm.
that.
Yeah, very interesting.
hmm So
Nice.
it's in a thing like that, I think it should be obvious to pretty much anyone that this is the right thing to do, and people feel like men, especially women as well, obviously, but men feel this like drive, to I guess do their duty to their country and to protect their loved ones. Like I talk with soldiers a lot, and they always say like I went to defend like my wife, my mother, my sister, my loved ones, my family, my city, and yeah, that's
And
about
that's
it.
the interesting thing when you talk about those with those idiots who are like kind of pro-Russian or against Ukraine. When they talk about enlistment, they only talk about, oh, there's forced recruiting, something happening, blah blah blah. No, most people want to help, want to do something. That's the important part of this enlistment, whatever topic here. Not those that there's some maybe people I don't know who got caught at the border to
Yeah, that
Moldova
happened.
or
Yeah.
something.
hmm
Yeah, and it happens, of course. But when you only talk about those negative aspects, then you kind of like then it's obvious like what kind of narrative you want to push.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is something I criticize this person today on Twitter about, because it's just I'm not like denying the existence of far right people in the army. It'd be kind of dumb to do, obviously, right? There are people there, but it's
Mm,
just like highlighting that endlessly. Like just my whole feed is flooded with pictures of some random ass patches of some random ass Ukrainian soldiers, half of which is Photoshop. It's just what are you doing? Is just you just create, and you just even if you he said actually he kind of supports Ukraine, but that's another thing. You just help and you assist in this already insane smear campaign that was created by
mm,
Russia specifically with that purpose, to dehumanize Ukrainians, to make them seem as the Nazis that don't deserve support. This is exactly targeted to poison the minds of people to not helping us, and
yeah.
to which our lives literally depend on that help. It's no joke,
Mm,
So
Yeah.
spreading in that type of thing, you are basically what you're doing is you are assisting Russia in that regard. Is what you're doing. So yeah,
Yeah.
so talking about some like silly patches, or like I don't know, like Nazi symbols, or talking about questionable like alliances of our like
mm.
basically all of that is a good thing, but not now. Just not now. After this,
Or
yeah, I
or
would
even
no.
if you want to talk about it, then if you want to talk about patches and neo-Nazi, I don't know, then talk about it from everywhere you see. But you kind of, it's so obvious that they only look at patches worn by Ukrainian soldiers, but
Yes,
not by
you
like Rusich, I don't know, neo-Nazi
Wagner, yeah, whatever, right?
battalions. Mm,
Yeah.
Yes, and the worst thing about it is that when I actually each time I check their like Twitter or something like that,
mm,
you would not see it with like a fire torch in your hand. The post about what Russians are doing, about Russian war crimes, about like you said, like swastikas all over the fucking foreheads of Russian like soldiers. People like Wagner is just another type of like beast Wagner, comparatively to everything else. And I just a little bit lost my shit recently when there was this video. You probably saw it or heard of it, of Wagner beheading our
Yeah.
soldier
yeah.
life. Yeah, yeah. So I saw that without any censorship, without anything. And like most Ukrainians do, we don't, we don't shy away from seeing things like that. We see them. So after that, I went to my Twitter, and I just wanted to post something, and I saw this post of a person finding some like arrows, like white arrows on the on the machinery of Ukrainian like battalions, which kind of means like a direction, I think, or something like that. And he kind of like implied that this was a Nazi symbology on this very day, well, where the entire Twitter was just everywhere was this video of the beheading like circulating, like you couldn't just miss it. It was
Yeah.
Yeah.
everywhere. And I just like literally lost like my temper at that point, because I was just just what are we talking about? They're like castrating our people, they're beheading them, they're torturing them, they're mass slaughtering them, they raped a fucking like infant, and they have pictures of it. And why are we talking about an arrow emblem? It's just yeah, it's very hard as a Ukrainian sometimes to deal with that shit.
Yeah.
I will be honest, like on emotional level, because it's just so, just the level of horror. Like I don't want you guys to see that shit, obviously, but just understand that we see it, and we like it's never ending. Like Telegram is just basically filled with that, what Russians did to people. And like, not to be like morbid, but my father is like a splash on the wall, so it's just yeah, it's sometimes very hard to deal with that, especially this like scrutiny that people like under, they look like in this like magnifying glass to find some Nazi like patch or whatever the fuck, and you have like Russia like in front of your face saying that they are Ukrainian. Being Ukrainian is a disease of the mind and it needs to be eliminated. And it's like I don't know. Like yeah, it's
Yeah.
just very very
It's
hard
even
sometimes.
even if the people are right, like even if there are these patches and everything,
Yeah.
you have to ask yourself the question, okay, what narrative am I actually like forwarding if I participate? And the other question is also, are there like Ukrainian soldiers that are torturing and raping people in Ukraine? Because they are not.
Don't see it,
Yeah,
no
it's
footage so far. Yeah, I actually
and
said
there is
to
not.
my
Yeah, and
yeah,
even
sorry.
if it happens, because there was actually a debate in Germany about this, even if it happens, it's just like it happened like this one time, or these singular events, but it's not like the Russian army that is just delegating people. You have
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah, systemically. Yeah,
Yes,
that's the
Yeah,
systemically.
yeah,
difference in my
exactly. Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am 100% sure that people, I will not lie to you, it's obvious, right? That people who found bodies of their loved ones tossed into sewers, raped and abused and tortured in Bucha might have done some shitty things to those Russians who did it. It's obvious, right? So a friend of mine actually from there, he when he liberated that place, he saw his neighbors, people he knew his entire life, just slaughtered on the streets.
Mm.
Obviously, it took his, it did things to him, let's put it like that. So I have no doubt that he was pretty cruel to like Russian troops that they eventually found who did all of that. So this is likely. I'm not sure, obviously, but I'm sure that have been several instances like that when it's war, and those people came to here to commit horrible things, and they are committing them, right? So of course we are human, and we sometimes lose our shit. Let's put it like that. But it's definitely not on systematic level. Rarely will you see it. And also, there's one thing about being equating a victim and an abuser. In
Yep.
my opinion, it's
Yeah.
not right. You cannot
Mm.
equate people who came to Bucha to do all of that to those civilians with the soldiers who discovered their loved ones ripped apart and then went on a little bit of a killing spree. It might be, which is again. I cannot say this is a good thing. Obviously not. There have to be like certain rules to work. And we have been pretty good at following them, in my opinion. It's not us who's bombing their cities, it's not us who going around slaughtering people in Russian cities. It's not like that. So yeah. Anyhow, it's just pretty hard, and sometimes you have to be. I will like. I don't think I said it actually anywhere, but sometimes I just feel like this desperation that always have to like excuse ourselves, like Ukrainians. We have
Yeah.
to like find those, like we have to constantly explain
Yeah.
ourselves, and it's just sometimes it gets. I know this
It's
was
like
like kind of signed up to, but
it's like I feel sometimes that there's Russian army, Wagnerites, I don't know, and they do the cruelest shit. Like open, everyone can see it. But then like but then you see one, I don't know, Ukrainian army soldier who throws the second grenade into the trench, and then people discuss if it was necessary because he could hear the
Yeah.
screaming of giving, and then I think, come on, man, that's not this, that's such a double standard. Like,
Yeah.
even if you say, like, okay, the war suddenly started like with magic and there's no attacker and defender, even if you like erase that, no, and that's a big part of it, but even if you erase that, if you look at the evidence, it's so clear that you're either lying or that your opinion doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter because you're
Mm.
so biased in your opinion, no one cares
Yeah.
Yeah.
or
Uh,
should care.
the
Yeah.
the video you mentioned, I think that there was like a big debate about, is it that the video where
I don't mean
maybe,
any specific video,
oh, I see.
just an example. Yeah.
I meant the specific one actually right now. It was the one that there's like this scene basically that is video on a video that where Russian soldiers surrender and they're like on the ground basically lying, and then our guys just having them under like how do you say it, прицел. Basically they're like targeting their like weapons
Ah,
Yeah.
towards them but
yeah.
not shooting, yeah. And then there's like this one Russian dude who starts shooting at them, at our soldiers.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
they kind of
yeah.
like imitated
Mm,
surrender, and then during that surrender, they actually, I think, severely injured or maybe even killed one of our guys.
mm,
Yeah, it's
And
a war
one of our
crime.
guys just straight up like opens fire on all of them after that. And this was by all like experts of like war analysis said that this was completely legitimate act. So after they tried to surrender and basically after that surrender opened fire on our soldiers had the right to shoot all of them basically.
Yeah, yeah. That's
So
a false surrender is a war crime, considered a war crime. Yeah.
yeah. But Twitter and people and everywhere was
Yeah,
just saying, "Look
obviously.
at those Ukrainian Nazis," and they would actually compare that, like with a straight face, would compare that with that video footage where they just straight up executed our like prisoner of war. You
Yeah.
probably saw that one. It was not bloody.
mm,
He was just standing there, like ready to be executed, pretty much in basically like in a grave of sorts. And he looked at them like he was very calm, and he said, "Slava Ukraini," and they shot him
mm,
multiple times. I was calling him awful names, by the way, in the process, but that's like another story. So this was the video that circulated of him dying like that and being like the biggest Chad ever because he didn't even blink. He was not scared. And so basically they showed this as the same as shooting at people who tried to kill you during like false
yeah.
surrender. Yeah, so this is just complete nonsense. Yeah. But have to deal with that, I guess.
Mm,
You just have to. I sometimes just don't engage with that thing. I just don't care anymore at this point.
Hmm.
I think it's been like more than a year at this point, right? And it's very hard to imagine people still doing that shit in good faith, basically. So I think if you like people are continue to spread like this type of propaganda, or their minds are set on like hating like America and everyone who America assists is bad, that means Ukraine is bad. I think if they still think that after all of this, then there's no convincing them. So you can just pretty much give up on
mm.
them at this point. I think so, at least.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like I have a distant friend whose father was killed in Srebrenica, like I think over 8,000 people. And then she told me about a discussion which she had with some, I don't know, I think even a leftist in Germany, about because some were also pro-Serbian somehow because they saw Serbia as like a
Yeah,
socialist
yeah.
friend or something. And then she told me that she had to argue about like she had the comeback argument, like, but the Bosnians did also some terrible things. So, and she didn't know what to say. Like, what are you trying to do? Like, it's just throwing like examples at each other, and if you don't want to see the big picture, or count like what bad things happened, then I don't really think you're trying to analyze a new perspective and just trying to how do you say, like
A narrative to push, basically.
fulfill
Yeah.
your narrative you already
Mm.
believe in, like
Yeah.
the West
Yeah.
is bad, NATO is bad, and Russia is kind of like still the USSR, maybe like in the Simpsons scene, you know, when he pushes down. I
Yeah.
think
Uh,
that's like something like I feel really some people really believe. And there was like this a documentary I saw here in Germany, like I think yesterday, a Ukrainian journalist going on a demonstration pro or like peace demonstration,
yeah.
which are
Pro-Russian, yeah.
mostly
Yeah.
pro-Russian.
Uh,
And after she talked to like dozen people, she was just like saying they don't say anything. It's not like they have an argument. Some people have it, but all they say is like Ukrainians are brainwashed, West is bad,
mhm.
and don't give, and then it's nothing, you know. And kind of like gives me chills about, and I love democracy, but when you have so many people, especially sometimes I feel in Germany, who like so, I don't know, so brainwashed, it really scares me, you know.
Mm. Well, yeah, obviously, right? It's just what they do is they mostly like gesture things. So they just paint the narrative. So like Ukrainians are Nazis. So like America created a coup. Maidan was like a coup, not a
Oh
revolution.
yeah.
So they basically like straight up repeat some Russian crucial to Russian propaganda points to just basically lead you to the conclusion that Ukraine doesn't deserve help or you shouldn't give it to them. And they usually use some sort of tactics like to make themselves look better. Something like we actually like further in the war. We actually like fuel in the fire if we are continuing the support, which we already talked about before with you guys. But you know, it's just something that they tend to tend to appeal to all the time. And I always say to people that if you like paint yourself as like this peace person, then you're just straight up pro-Russia. This is just, you know, it's just a false like a, you know, like a wall you put between yourself and this to look better, basically, because calling yourself like pro-Russia, pro-war is kind of like a, you know, a strong position, let's put
Yeah.
it like that. So you look way better than you just say, oh, I'm for peace, I just want negotiations. What's wrong with negotiations? Since then the left supports war and like I don't know, like what they say, like intervention and like invasion of things like that. So yeah, so this is just also there's like this stupid like attachment to like Soviet whatever the hell thing that leftists have. And I must say this: if you're a leftist and you have anti-fascist or anti-imperialist in your bio, Putin is a weird champion, I must say.
Yeah.
He's a very weird champion for your cause. I couldn't find a weird one probably if I tried. So yeah, this is very, it has been disheartening for me, by the way, quite a lot, because I kind of expected far right people to be pro Russia, duh, right?
Hmm.
They love like nationalist fascist types that would be like, you know, the glorious like traditional man alpha macho Putin, some that will, you know, restore the order and save the white race or whatever the heck. So this is kind of like, you know, yeah, they
It's a
would be, you know,
no-brainer,
his
yeah.
fans. Yeah, makes sense. Didn't like expect anything else. But from the left, now that was a surprise. Let's me say, let's me put like that. This
Mm.
was one aspect I would say I'm kind of naive at, I guess you could say, because I actually was kind of like, not exactly like calling yourself a socialist in Ukraine is like very much a move. You just don't do
Okay.
that, basically, is what I'm saying. Just it's just because of the connotations of
The
like Soviet
connotations,
Union. And
yeah.
oh yeah,
Ah,
it's a move, like let's put it like that. So if you say someone you're like a socialist, they will almost immediately assume you're like brain damaged because you're like a pro-Soviet, pro-Russia, pro-commie, like whatever the heck.
good.
And they kind of make sense why, you know, I'm not mad at that. So yeah, so if you want to like support some like socialist ideas or like policies, you have to like come at it at the angle, not to say they're actually socialist. So you would say
Mm.
like, I don't know, like free medicine or free like Medicare or like free education, things like that, right? And you just don't name and say they're socialist ideas, and you'll be kind of okay. And most people actually stand by justified because it kind of is like that in Ukraine right now. We have like free education. So things like that. But other than I never called myself like a socialist, but I always identified with like lefty things because it's just how I see the world, and the hair must have given it away. So there's like those things, and it was a very much a blow to see just how pro-Russian, just how Russian apologia like everywhere, just trying to paint this as Ukrainians as full-on like brain damaged sheeps that don't understand what they want, have no like agency of their own whatsoever, just basically blaming NATO on everything, blaming United States, America bad, American diabolism, whatever it's called. It just was such a shock to me at first. Now it's not, but
But
yeah,
I have
disappointment.
I have an interesting
Yeah.
question. If you would consider yourself a leftist or a progressive, or maybe both, or where you stand politically?
Well, now I kind of feel like I'm vomiting a little bit when I
Yeah,
call myself leftist.
understandably. Yeah.
But yeah, but both intents and purposes I am. So it's kind of don't it's cringe to say, but just yeah. But by Ukrainian standard, I'm like hella progressive. I'm like the most progressive like on planet Earth, basically. By Eastern Europe, not the most progressive peeps on Earth. You guys probably know.
Mm.
Yeah.
So by that standard, I'm like super progressive. I'm a like literal copy by that point, I guess. No, not I'm joking. But it's just but overall I kind of like think I fall into like social democrat type of person, like dem type of person, if you
Yeah.
like use
Yeah.
American term.
I can only
So
imagine
so I
because my family is also very staunchly conservative, and
mm,
me and my sister and one cousin actually, we are like the only progressive people in our whole family of like 100
aw.
people. It's a
Yeah,
little
well,
bit disheartening to say the least.
sure, yes. Luckily for me, like my family is pretty much somewhat like me, but in my friends, obviously, also sort of. But I also have far right people as my friends. I also have a pretty traditional people as my friends, religious people as my friends. So I have like a various, you know, various group of people, and I kind of get along with them pretty fine, although we disagree on quite a lot. But
It
yeah, it is
probably
obviously like
galvanizes people, yeah. Like,
yeah, for sure. Also, like this vibe right now is like anti-Russian everything, obviously, right?
yeah.
So this is why you have like people who are like, for example, quite a close friend of mine, Denise. He's very homophobic. Let's put it like that. So it's not
Mhm.
like something surprising, to be honest, in like Eastern Europe or Soviet sphere, but it's way worse in Russia, by the way, just for the people in the back. But yeah, since 2014 it got way better in Ukraine, which I super duper happy about. But overall it's not uncommon, let's put it like that, so meet homophobic people here. And he was like that, quite aggressive even for my taste. I can get with some like mildly homophobic jokes easily, but just he was just very, forward about it. Let's put it like that. So recently, we have like a couple months ago, we had a conversation, and he was like started, doing homophobic like talking points basically. And I was like, you know what? You actually kind of sound like Russian right now. And he was like, what? And I was like, well, you do, you're just obsessing over like gay people, like gay invasion, whatever the hell. You just cannot let them be, and you just chill. Just what gays did to you? Why do you care so much? And he was like, what? I'm not Russian. I'm nothing like Russian. But you're just saying Russian talking points right now. And he was like, I'm not. Just stick. Yeah, and after that, I actually had a conversation after that, another conversation, and he chilled out significantly. He actually admitted to me that he considered it, and he thought like, why I'm so obsessed with this? Like, why do I care so much? Sure, like I don't like them. I find them like icky, right? Like, yikes. But still, why I'm so like obsessed with it, as if it matters so much what they do, what gay people do, and if it's some sort of like danger or threat to me. It's not. So
Mm.
why am I so like obsessed with it? Just because for such a long time we have been in Russian sphere, and it is one of the main propaganda points of theirs, like degeneracy, Western degeneracy, gays, whatever, right?
Europa. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Europa, things like that. So he absorbed it, and he didn't even understand that he absorbed it. Actually, the talking points of people he now sees as like fascist fucks, basically, and despises. So yeah. So this is just something that actually helps us. So I think our like Russophobia actually helps us now to move further towards like liberalism, at least, and like more left-leaning ideas, and so I think it's good for us actually in terms of like our jump into more like better human rights and things like that, which I obviously I'm all for. So it's kind of hard to be a person with a rainbow tattoo and not be in Ukraine a voice for LGBT people. I just have to you know yeah, but overall it's got better for sure since 2014, but even better I think now since invasion actually. So I would get some very far right people like who are like way more far right than I am, and they would be like, whatever, gay or don't care. If you like a person is in my battalion is cool and he like fights for Ukraine, and who cares? I had this very interesting conversation with a friend of mine who's actually he's a gay man, and he actually came out to his battalion, and it was very scary for him because he could
Yeah.
have army is not the place where like generally
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
is very gay friendly, let's put it like that. And he's a doctor, by the way. He's a medic, one of the people who actually gave those hemostatic dressings to. And when he like set them down and he said it, and he was very very nervous, and they were like, dude, don't give a fuck, you like sued our guts back several times, whatever, be
Yeah.
gay, we don't care.
Nice.
Yeah, and it was it was just such a relief for him, obviously, but also it's a kind of interesting story because I think after a person saved your life like so many times and you just fight this truly horrid evil, let's put it like that, together, it's kind of hard to care who person fancies,
Yeah.
it makes it kind of hard to be very invested in that shit. So yeah, I
Yeah.
do hope
And
we'll be better at that in the future.
I think you're
And
probably better than Germany in some sorts because
You think?
it's kind
Surprise.
of hard. Yeah, it's kind of hard in the military or in the police to come out as gay. It's
Um,
still a little bit. It's very conservative here because it's also
mm,
like militarized, and left-leaning people don't really go there. So it's kind of obvious that homophobic and conservative people are there. And there is no
yeah.
galvanization part. There is no one invading. So there is no need to be actually, you have my back, the sort of thinking. So it's, I guess,
Yeah.
easier to cast them out or to discriminate against them.
Yeah, actually, I think you're right. This is like kind of like an antidote almost for this
Mm,
stuff, which is in the spaces that you would usually don't see it. It's just acceptance like that is just something that I personally like didn't see much in Ukraine, especially in those like army types. So yeah, so this is just you probably know her, or at least saw her. Sarah is her name. She's like
yeah.
she's a trans lady who actually is part of like Ukrainian army. She posts on Twitter
oh
quite
yeah.
a lot. So something like that in Ukraine to be so wide. She's very loved by Ukrainian people, and she's wildly accepted. Sure, there's some like fucktards who who are transphobic to her, obviously, but most people are very accepting and very kind and admire her as a person, and I think this very much helps
Yeah.
to paint to forward like human rights and to acceptance and tolerance in Ukraine, which is something I'm super hyped about, because we don't need that shit here.
And it's also
I
very
think we can
funny
do better.
because the toxic masculine army of Russia is losing to the they them army, which is also a very funny joke always.
The they them army meme, that's I saw it. It's very funny, especially when they paint people like with like ear with piercings like in their nose and like
Yeah.
green like funky hair and things like that, and they just fucking up those like Russian army. It's very fun. It's kind of like sort of also true because we are not. I mean, not exactly they them army, but we're like much more. I guess you could say like progressive
Diverse.
than obviously
Progressive and diverse, yeah.
diverse than Russia is, and it's something that I want people to also associate those things together. I want to associate them to associate like working institutions, less corruption, like higher wages and better quality of life. I want them to associate it also with human rights, with freedoms, with things like that. And this is something that Russia uses as a boogeyman, basically Western degeneracy, like gays in the West, like decay of civilization. And I really want us to like escape this thing like forever, like entirely. I think it's happening, which I'm pretty obviously grateful about. Putin united people once more, in 2014 now, and now even the gays are, getting advanced in Ukraine thanks to him. Yeah, so it's just it has been happening because, for example, I participated in last Pride in Kharkiv, and it was the first one when we were not beaten up. So that's progress, in my humble opinion. We were like protected by police, and we did not get our asses beaten. So, and there were like a bunch of people who came to participate, not just gay people, but people who just support gay people in Ukraine. And it was much more, much cuter than it usually was. Let's say like that. I think it was maybe 2020 or 2021, something like that. So before the full-on invasion. And yeah, so sure there were like conservative traditional type of guys who were screaming "you are cancer" on us, but it's better than being beaten up in my opinion. So I take like the wins when I can. So I do think this whole thing will forward immensely like gay acceptance in Ukraine, this war and invasion. So I chuffed about that. Also, it's kind of part of being part of Europe, right? So if you want to be like European Union, then you have to be not to be a barbarian. You have to be a little bit civilized. So this is also like part of the game.
I mean, Hungary is in the EU.
Yeah,
I
I just wanted to say,
my bad. Yeah, my bad. My friend actually complained about it quite a bit. She's like quite she's like considers herself to be right leaning and a nationalist and a very like, but she actually is not. Like all of your opinions are left opinions, but she just cringes to say it. And she so it's basically she's like look, basically like me. So she's like climate change, very environmental friendly, LGBT friendly, super wants like rights to the marriage, everything, like, and very much like about this whole like reform medical medicine should be healthcare, not medicine, healthcare should be free health education, like a bunch of like very much like lefty things. And she's like, no, I'm a far right, and I'm like, where? But she just can't admit it, and I understand why, obviously. And she's also identifies as a nationalist, which for some reason is not allowed. You cannot allowed to be a civic nationalist or to love your country and be patriotic and love your people if you're a lefty. I don't know what the heck is that, but it seems to be the case. And so she would basically just complain like, why the heck, like, they don't allow Ukrainian, but they have Hungary with a fucking Orban as the president. Like, what the hell? Yeah, so I understand like people, sometimes it's just, it's very, very confusing. Oh, Italy, for example, like, no offense to my Italian peeps, but you just elected literally a lady who thinks Mussolini was based. So,
true.
so I mean, but that patch, that patch on a Ukrainian soldier, though, we like have a Jewish president. We have like pretty much no far right people in the government, like whatsoever, like no power whatsoever. They're deeply unpopular amongst the people, and still we have to defend our asses from these accusations all the time. While Hungary and Italy, they're just chilling,
or
like,
even Germany.
Well, not as bad in my opinion, but
yeah, we still have major problems, but
yeah. Or United States, they are the ones who scream the loudest usually, but just hello. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene and people like that in the actual government, like Trump and other people as well. I wouldn't like, compare him to Putin. Obviously, that's a bit of an overkill. Let's put it like that. But overall, it's just very funny that Ukraine we are shot at all the time with those like accusations. Meanwhile, we're like the chillest country in terms of Jews in this region, actually. I don't know if you saw that statistic, but basically,
anti-Semitism is one of the lowest in Europe or even the world. So it's very funny.
And we have like a lot of Jewish people here. So so it's just not super duper not uncommon to find like open, it's hard to find a person in Ukraine who doesn't have like Jewish friends, Jewish like family members, Jewish. It's it's very sure there's anti-Semitism, and they're like very yikesy people. Anti-Semitism exists everywhere. It's not not a specifically Ukrainian problem, but it's actually not a problem whatsoever comparatively to countries like Armenia, Why did Russia did not want to denazify Armenia?
Or Russia
I
itself.
wonder.
Yeah.
Armenia was the worst. It has like 33% pure hatred for
Yeah.
for Jewish people. The question they asked was actually, will you accept Jewish people as your neighbors? So are you even willing to live
Ah,
near them? Not just be like friends with him or with them or anything, just tolerate their presence in your country. And 33% of Armenians said fuck no. So
Yeah.
so it's just Ukraine was like 4, I think, or something. So yeah, it's just it's very kind of fun. Also, I think Romania was not great in that regard, but Armenia just took the cake, so to speak.
Yeah, Armenia took the cake,
Um,
but Europe in general was not bad. I think there was not a single country that was better than Ukraine. So
no, I think so. Yeah,
uh,
at least it's from those who were like participated in the survey.
which is also funny
Um,
considering like Germany, for example. Like
was it this Pew Research
yeah,
thingy?
yeah, genau.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Now I see it. Oh, Armenia. Okay.
Yeah, Armenia went off. They went off. Yeah. So yeah, it's just again, I'm not saying people should invade them because of that, obviously, but I mean, just come on, it's just yeah. Why? I mean,
Yeah.
I guess it's our lot in life. We have to defend ourselves from Nazi accusations. Which, by the way, I rarely mention it, but so insulting as Ukraine because we like suffered almost the most during Nazi occupation. Like I think more people were killed in Belarus actually, relatively to like numbers of population. But Ukraine was one of the actually countries who suffered the worst during Nazi occupation in terms of just sheer losses of like, human numbers. And also we were like a huge chunk of Red Army were Ukrainians who fought against Nazis overall. And it's not Russia that was occupied by Nazis; it's Ukraine. People don't even consider it, but it's just the pure truth. Just look at the map where the Nazi invasion stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just so offensive for people, obviously, when you hear that. And my volunteer buddy I told you about, Igor, he's a Jew, so he just loses his his shit entirely when people say things like that because it's just so offensive to him. And it's just yeah. Anyhow, and that a picture I think was kind of fun. That Mariupol is, as you probably know, was like basically like a main base for Azov for a while. They defended the city back in 2014,
Yeah.
and since then it was like their main place of where they were stationed at. And there was like this very interesting picture of huge Hanukkah like tree there during celebration time. And you would think that the city that was almost entirely controlled by Azov at some point, without even like government intervention, just straight up controlled by Azov, you wouldn't have like a Hanukkah, tree there. But there it was. Yeah. Also, I don't know if you guys know, but quite a lot of like Azov people actually Jewish and Greek, because quite a lot of people in Donbass tend to be Greek and Jews as well. So yeah, it's kind of random fact. But most Greeks who live in Ukraine are actually from Crimea or Donbass mostly.
Yeah.
So a bunch of my fellow Greek peeps, so to speak, were the ones who escaped from Russian invasion back in 2014.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully we can have another call once this nightmare is over. And you can tell us
Yeah, I
about
would love to. Yeah.
some good stories. That would be great.
Yeah, you could chat anytime you want, guys. You're super cool. I really liked talking with you. So if you want to like have me on anytime, I will be glad to. And yeah, it's sometimes kind of nice to actually. This will be a European supremacy moment. Cut the clip. But actually, kind of nice to sometimes talk to European people, not like United States people, because
Is it
uh,
that different, really?
yes. Oh, yes. You can't even imagine how different it is. It's just pure lack of understanding of how Europe works, like of history,
Yeah.
of
Yeah, I think
it's
so
just
too.
yeah, it's not their fault exactly. They're like kind of isolated, like as a separate thing, like separate continent, and it's just. But they speak sometimes not. Americans speak very loudly, and very confidently about like things they just have zero knowledge about, and it's very like the most basic shit like every European person pretty much understands. Yeah, I talked with Destiny about it several times, and he basically kind of explained to me that they only understand like racial conflicts at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
they just don't understand like Russians, Ukrainians like hating each other, like killing each other, like
We're all white
Yugoslavia.
people.
Yeah, all white people speaking the same language or something. Like you all look the same. Like what's the heck? Like Croatians and like Serbians is the same shit. Like what's the difference? You know. So it's just yeah, it's very like I said I could say like out of touch a little bit. I guess. Also, leftists from United States are literally the worst. The leftists in Europe are pretty chill actually. Like people I talked with, they're like very much like sometimes not, but quite a lot of them are very like pro-Ukraine. They understand what is going on. They know what Russia is. They know like what is happening. But United States leftists, oh, that's just
Which
I
is
another
think
thing.
like because you have this all-encompassing Democratic Party, because there's so many leftists like in there, but all those crazy people, they are inside these strange fringe organizations like Democratic Socialists for America or something. And when
Yes,
you
these
see
guys. I
their
posted about
conference,
them.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah, and they're like totally like so many people like not pro-Russian, but like
They're
peace
on
and
Putin's
I
dick.
don't know.
Tell it how it
Yeah.
is. They're like
tell it.
hanging from his
Which,
dick.
but
It's true. Like
which is very funny because
yeah.
Bernie Sanders is actually against that. Like
Yes, yes.
one of the most progressive and leftist dudes out there. Where even Hassan
Mm.
said, "Bernie or bust." Like he's the president. We should. It's like, but like, why are you not listening to him when he's talking?
Actually, that communist, whatever the heck organization in United States you talked about, they actually shat all over Bernie and
Yeah,
Ocasio-Cortez, I think is her name.
Mm-hmm.
She like the most prominent, basically leftist in the politics, American politics. They like called them like some incredibly cringy lefty shit, like bourgeois something liberal sympathizers or some shit like
Yeah,
that. Like
yeah,
yeah, so like because they're like pro-Ukraine, they call them warmongers and they call them sellouts, and it's just like the two decent people you have, you like shat on. Good job, you know.
yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, it's just it's very very bad, very bad. So it's mostly ruled, as I learned, in my opinion at least, by like America bad shit. So they're like obsessed with it. It's just all they think about is like America, the biggest evil, the biggest like imperialist colonizer. Nobody colonized anyone outside of the United States. White people, only white people colonized people. So Ottoman Empire did not exist. China did not exist. Like Russian Empire did not exist. All of it just it didn't exist. Everything is concentrated in the United States of whatever, and it's just very kind of obvious that they just see themselves as those, like those American exceptionalism people, like
yeah,
right-leaning people who, oh, America is so great, it's like the best place on earth, like everyone shits like butterflies and rainbows and everything is great. And this is like the opposite side of it. So America is the worst. It's like the worst thing ever, but still exceptionally worse.
yeah,
Exceptionally evil, still exceptional though. It's just like the different flavor of the same thing. So everything revolves around America. Not a single conflict can go without America. It's just everything. I like kind of like insulted some I guess
yeah,
Americans when I said that, guys, like this conflict between Russia and Ukraine and Russian oppression and imperialist policies against Ukraine are older than your country. I mean, you didn't exist when it happened. No offense, you guys. It just has nothing to do with you, like whatsoever. So yeah, it's just very interesting to talk with them and see just how much their worldview is shaped by their own prominence, by their own like exceptionalism. And it's kind of funny because they claim to be like anti-imperialist, anti-colonial people, but then you talk with them and they're like the biggest imperialist ever. If only it's not America who does it.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
There's this one clip. Do you remember when I think Hassan was talking about Crimea, and
Oh no,
who
yeah, I
Crimea
remember.
belonged to? So, number one is, I don't know, the Ottomans, and then the Tatars. I don't. And then he went on this strange ethno-nationalist,
Yeah, Russia, because most of them are
blood
Russia
and
there, right? Yeah.
soil like
Yeah.
narrative. and like I think, and maybe 1 hour later he's talking about like I don't know, worker co-ops or something.
Yeah, that was a strong moment, so strong socialist moment right there.
Yeah.
Just it's just who's the ethnic majority. By the way, ethnic majority Russians in Crimea are only because they genocided the previous population. Just
Yeah.
saying, Tatari.
Mm.
Yeah. So this is just yeah, it's very interesting. It's something that Russia does all the time. They will basically genocide the population and then replace it with their population and have like full cultural like grasp there, like a control. And then when that population, they can also use them as to explain, oh, those are prosecuted. Russian people are prosecuted. We're running there to save
Like
them.
in
Always the
Abkhazia,
savior.
yeah,
Yes,
in North
exactly. Yeah,
Ossetia,
exactly like
then they
Abkhazia,
hand out
Ossetia.
passports. I'm just
Hmm.
waiting. I don't know. Maybe it sounds like super like dark, but I think I don't think Ukraine will be the last country to be
Definitely,
attacked
yeah.
or something, because they're talking a whole lot about Kazakhstan, for example. I think also
Exactly.
like 20-30% maybe Russian speaking, or a Russian like population in the north maybe.
Yeah.
And that's kind of chill.
Yeah, they will definitely not stop. If we don't stop them now, if
Yeah.
Ukraine have fallen, they would most definitely smack Moldova. This is not even a question, and Moldova
Mm,
people know it, by the way. Georgia, 100%, and more maybe Kazakhstan as well. I agree, like with your assessment there. But Moldova
Yeah.
and Georgia, 100. It's not even a fucking question. So they are not in NATO, so easy target, and they are not in European Union as well, as far as I know, and not to at least like part of European Union fully. So this would be like
and
one
very
and the
small. Yeah.
precedent. Very small, very easily, pretty much no army, and easy prey, and also the precedent. They already annexed and attacked those countries prior. So
Mm.
Moldova is like Pridnestrovia, how it's called in English,
Puppet
Transnistria.
state?
Yeah,
Like
Transnistria is like
Transnistria is
this.
Yeah,
like
Yeah,
a
yeah,
puppet
yeah.
Transnistria.
state
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, so also like same shit in like Abkhazia cities in Georgia. So it's not like
Mm.
it's nothing new, honestly. Just they just try to grab what they can and see the word's reaction. The reward does nothing. Well, let's go further. It's just this whole like appeasement shit. It just really doesn't work, and people should have learned that by now.
Mm.
No offense. I mean, appeasing Hitler didn't really work that well. You know, so it doesn't seem to be the best thing to allow maniacal tyrants to take what they want. It seems to, encourage them to take more. So yeah, this is just what people know. By the way, in Moldova and
Mm.
in Georgia, people quite aware that we defend them as well. So yeah, and we can because we're like kind of large in a way, because not Russia large obviously, but one of the biggest, if not the biggest, like country in Europe. Yeah, so we have like way more chances, let's say, than Moldova does, clearly.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's something that we keep in mind all the time, that there are countries, so other people, other nations who kind of depend on us as well.
Mm.
So yeah, that's true.
I
But
really super
Kazakhstan,
hope that you get the military equipment needed.
thank you.
That's like
Really
that's
appreciate.
like that's like the bit thing, but I'll always have the feeling like our politicians. I think something shifted in the last months because of the main battle tanks and air defense systems. But as you said at the beginning, all we sent was like handheld rocket launchers, maybe some
Yeah,
armored
javelins, things like that.
transport,
Yeah. Hmm.
javelins,
Hmm.
and combat. I don't know, uniforms or something, or logistical things, trucks. And now, but I have the feeling that they're like don't want to get too pushy, so they send more tanks. For example, you don't even need to send like the F-22 fighter jets. Of course, I understand that, but
Hmm.
even enough tanks so you can better free your territory from occupation. But I think there's still this hesitation to fully commit to your help to restore your
Maybe, yeah.
sovereignty.
Maybe, yeah. I think people are still um there's this whole thing that you guys in the West have, is that you worry, your politicians tend to worry about their elections, you know. Yeah. So if the people in the country are apprehensive, let's put it like that, they don't want to like full on have conflicts with Russia. They don't want to like full on support Ukraine, put in Germany, France, whatever, right? The country. And of people like Macron, for example, right, in France,
Mm,
how can he be like all out pro Ukraine? Which we suspect he is, because his buddy is actually with our Zelensky. But he cannot be, because his people are not, you know. So he can't like proclaim like loud anti-Russia shit and all like very loud anti-Ukrainian shit if he wants to be elected. And he nearly got beaten up, but that pretty fascist looking lady who's like
yeah.
Also, he's not very
what's her
liked.
name?
Also, he's not very liked because of the worker rights issue in France. I mean,
Mm,
they're kind of going wild on that, but yeah.
Yes. So the population, if the population is apprehensive and doesn't want, like how you said, like a peace, or like don't want to like support Ukraine full on, and kind of had doubts, has like this, why should we care? It's not our problem. Why should we pay more for gas and like things like that if it's not our problem? If you have population that is like that, of course, politicians and their policies will reflect that,
mm,
because they just want to, be reelected. Makes sense to me. So yeah, so when people like cry about like Macron and what a cock or something, like call him names basically, right? Not really. He kind of like represents French people in that way. I don't think it's like a stretch to say that most French people are not exactly like incredibly like going to die on Ukrainian barricades, which we don't ask, by the way. Obviously, we don't ask people to physically like participate in this war, just the aid, military aid and financial aid and things like that. But yeah, it's just, I think it's something to consider, that many countries don't populations are apprehensive and don't want to like participate in it, and don't really want to like lose ties with Russia fully, or like condemn them fully
yeah.
even. So yeah,
Yeah.
so
And Russia
politicians
did
follow.
good work, yeah, in the last like 10 or 15 years because they hella supported all those right-wing parties and movements in especially
Hmm.
Western Europe. Because I feel in Eastern Europe, maybe with some exceptions like Hungary, for example, but all those right-wing parties, even here in Germany, which is relatively new in comparison to France or other big countries in Western Europe, they are like fully supported by Russia, like
Yeah,
10
Russia.
years ago,
Yeah,
15
Russia
years
affiliated.
ago. Hmm.
Yeah, of course. So people like, for example, Orban, they are not the West, but exactly, but they're like pretty much pushed forward by like straight up Russia. So it's just, yeah. So this Le Pen, I think is her name. If
Yeah,
that
Le
is the
Pen.
friend,
Le
Yeah.
Pen, yeah.
she's like
Mm.
100% like Putin's, friend. I wanted to say
Wasn't it
misogynistic
wasn't it
thing,
in
and I
France that
contained myself.
what wasn't in
Yeah.
France like last year like general elections and Le Pen had like in her like was it called in her voting flyers like a little book like a picture about foreign policy shaking hands with Putin, and
Yeah, I
after the
think
war
so.
started I think she pulled all those flyers away. Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
poor lady, had to ditch the ship before it sinks.
Mm.
Yeah, so yeah, they do it. In fact, there's like a very interesting article. I don't know if you guys saw it. I maybe like send you a link if I find it. There's like it translated in English, so you can read it. It's just a bunch of like incredible facts and archived documents about Putin sponsoring like far right people all over the world,
Oh.
basically. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so it's like a compilation that a journalist made, Ukrainian journalist, that is very, very great. It's like very detailed with pictures, with like dates, with everything, like a full-on documentary, just like in written form. So if I find it, I will send it to you, because it's pretty
Oh,
great.
that would
Not
be
only
cool.
not only that, he also covered the like far right groups, like not politicians, but actual like organizations, groups, militia, that they also like kind of like sponsored.
Mm.
And he even like had like pictures of Putin actually meeting with these people, like shaking hands and like going on parties with them, or like their children meeting up with each other, things like that, basically. So it's
Mm.
not some like crazy conspiracy, type of shit, but actually like real like conversations, real meetups. I think like Putin was on like several weddings of very far right people in various countries. So it's obviously like not a coincidence, right? So yeah, and he even found some like financial operations as well, so like straight up payments and things like that. There is this thing about like Russia kind of like helping Trump as well, which is most right-leaning people consider to be bullshit. But I do think I heard that was like pretty credible evidence found of Russian collusion in the election when Trump was getting elected.
Not kind of collusion, but like, if, for example, I think the craziest thing which was happening after those Mueller indictments was, for example, that they organized like Russians grew, or was it called like those internet troll farms?
Bots,
That
yeah,
they
troll farms, yeah.
Yeah, that they organized demonstrations from both sides in a city, for example, like Black Lives
this is what
Matter,
I saw, yeah.
for example.
Yeah.
That's like crazy. Like,
Yeah.
but it makes
Yeah.
sense, of course. They want to steer up the harmony, and all they want is conflict, like this culture war that works for them. Like here in Germany, all trans people, they're gonna take over everything and gonna
Yeah.
molest our children, blah blah blah. And that's the narrative Russia and Putin tries to push, like this anti-queer, and we are like blood and soil, white people, everything, and like, and everything in every country is good. Like, it's called ethno-pluralism. Every country, like, it's good on their own, and if everyone stays in their own respective country, everything is going to be all right. Orthodox people are right over there, Catholics here, and that's what happens, I think, in the Donbas region, and which is occupied by Russia, that they like literally expelled all like Protestant people, Catholics,
Yeah, Greek
Muslims,
Catholics, yeah.
Greek Catholics, for example.
Yeah, but this is like type of nationalist like shit. Like Ukraine doesn't really support that much. So most people here are. So basically, when I speak with people and I ask them, right, they would say like, "You nationalist? Yeah, sure." But if you ask them what is Ukrainian, they never say ethnically. So never, you wouldn't like even hear it. So Azerbaijani is a Ukrainian. You know, if his nationality is Ukraine, he has Ukrainian passport. He like lives in Ukraine. He's a Ukrainian. Like I don't know, like a Greek is a Ukrainian, Jew is a Ukrainian, whatever the hell. So they care about nation, and nationality. They don't care about ethnic makeup, which is not something you I guess you could find in far right groups in, for example, United States, right? They're very much about like the white race, the European, something like heritage or some shit like that, right? But in Ukraine, it's very much different, and it has been for quite some time. Even like very far right nationalists back in the day, they were like almost all civic. So not with some exceptions, obviously, but it's pretty interesting like differentiation, I think, and also like don't care about religion, so none of that. So you can be like, don't have to be like Orthodox to be obviously Ukrainian, right? So yeah, so also kind of fun that we talked about like this Putin being like an agent of chaos basically is very much on his agenda, because if you know who Dugin is, he basically
Oh, yeah, with the beard.
so he basically, his whole kind of like idea, right, is he writes that their goal should be to sow chaos in the United States and the West and weaken the West, make them like that's why you said like sponsoring opposite groups against each other, is like just to weaken, to sow like this to basically create this like separation between people, create this like conflict, and which will weaken the West, which is ultimately is their goal, to have a weak Western countries that will not be able to stop them from their own like goals and expansions and everything, because they are very loud and proud about the idea of creating like Soviet Union 2.0, basically. Not exactly, but Putin famously called the fall of Soviet Union the biggest geopolitical catastrophe in like 20th century. Not
Yeah.
the World War II, not Holocaust, not like anything, but
No,
just
obviously
that.
not. Yeah, just that.
Yeah, right. So that would be something like obviously they trying to recreate right now, and Ukraine is a big part of this project and has been always in for Russian like nationalists and Russian chauvinist imperialist movements. So yeah, without Ukraine, they don't really like feel like they can achieve this project whatsoever. So also ties down to like Kievan Rus history, which is a long story for another time. But it also kind of like ties like where basically they kind of like adopted this identity of being the main Rus people, like the main defenders, main like descendants of like Kievan Rus. Never mind the fact that Kievan Rus has Kiev for a reason there in the world, but just completely like they have like our currency, our like whatever. It's just very much like quite a lot of it is Ukrainian. Ukrainian is a descendant of that, obviously, but they kind of like basically like appropriated as them being the main Slavic people, the main descendants of like Kievan Rus. They completely denounce like any ties they have like with Mongolian, Asian heritage that they do in fact have in Russia, right? And they pretty much attached themselves to this history, to this story, and without Ukraine, it kind of doesn't work. So there are like this, I think they call it like Trinity or some shit like that. Trinity of Slavic people. It's like
Yeah.
Belarus, Ukraine, and Russia, something like that. So this is like very much important for them, like for historical reasons, to have a hold on Ukraine as well, because
Yeah, they're
we
kind
are
of
what we.
yeah. Sorry.
Mhm.
They're kind of like
No, no, continue.
they're just clipping off like the Moscow part of Russia and just leave everything in the
Yeah,
everything in the east is just like, yeah, we don't really care about you. We just care about
fuck
this.
you guys, you know.
We just care about this Moscow part and then Belarus and then Ukraine. This is like Russia, and everything else is just like, I mean, do you even exist? Like, come on.
Be quite fair, they're not wrong, because considering how they treat most of the other people, other nationalities, and how they subjugated them, discriminated them, and straight up genocided a bunch of them, which is also a very great article. A friend or a person like I know on Twitter, Ukrainian journalist did about them actually killing people inside their own country, like subjugating like native populations that are in Russia. And yeah, so they pretty much don't get that much. Russia is Moscow. It is true. So the difference between like how the quality of life, the influence, everything is just completely like pretty much two cities. It's like Moscow, St. Petersburg, and that's about it. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
maybe like Omsk is probably it's fucking ugly, but it's not as poor as most of other places. They have some decent places, obviously, right? But most of it is concentrated in Moscow, and they have like this hold that they basically like squeeze life out of every other region, and it's like subservient to Tsar, so to speak, to Russia, to Moscow, right, to Kremlin. And yeah, that's just, you would not see such a big difference, for example, in Ukraine between Kiev and other regions. It's just not how it works. Yeah, so there's not big of a difference between Kharkiv and Kiev in terms of life, quality of life, or like Odessa or Lvov or any other Dnipro, any other city. But yeah, sure, like capital is a bit more pays better there, but also quite more expensive than other cities, so it kind of like evens out at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, but the difference between like Moscow and I don't know, some Syktyvkar somewhere like no offense to Syktyvkar, but somewhere like some place like very very far east, like yeah, it's humongous difference, just unimaginable difference, which is kind of funny when people, foreigners, especially like celebrities, visit Russia. They have this like, I guess, feel of it as something it actually isn't, because they visit Moscow and they just don't see the shit show that is the rest of the country, that
Yeah.
60% of which does not have toilets in the houses. So yeah, that's also something to think about. And yeah, it's just a joke basically, like about Murmansk, which is not the best place to live in Russia, let's put it like that. And they have like everything is like in ruins, and there's like trash everywhere. Roads are broken, houses are decaying and falling apart. And we would sometimes just make fun of it. And oh look, it's Murmansk after it was bombed. Oh wait, no, it's just Murmansk. It
Yeah.
wasn't bombed. It just looks how it was bombed. So it's like a meme, in this sphere of the world. But just yeah, but just the state of Russia is not good. Let's put it like that.
Yeah. Well, okay, I don't know. It was a
Yep.
very fun time chatting with you.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
thanks.
really fun.
Super enjoyed it talking with you guys. Yeah, with European supremacy.
Yeah, we can do it.
Yeah, I will embrace that shit at this point. Being called Nazi whore left and right, so might as well. Yeah. So I really enjoyed talking with you, and anytime you like wanna maybe chat with me again, just
Cool.
we'll
So
talk.
2 things.
Yeah.
First thing,
Yep.
where can people find you?
Oh, people can find me pretty much on Twitter. That's the only place where
Mhm.
people can find me. Ukrainian Anna is my, if you can put it somewhere, my
Yeah.
name. And yeah, also there's like a PayPal in my bio, which is
Mhm.
my PayPal for my volunteer work. So if anyone wants to, donate a bit, would be super grateful if you do. Yeah, follow me there if you want. I post some stupid stuff every now and then, but also important stuff like about like volunteer work and things like that. We actually are just about to get our second quad bike. So it's on its way to Ukraine. I just
Oh.
paid
Mhm.
for transfer actually, and it's going from Lviv to Kharkiv. Right now, so quite soon we'll post pics of it, and we need
Mhm.
to renovate it first. So make it like sturdier, make it dyed to appropriate like camouflage type of colors, and then we will get it to our guys in Bakhmut area, which is, you probably know, is a
Wow.
pretty
Yeah.
Oh
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
heavy place. Yeah, so they needed to get to the terrains that are very much hard to cross. So like everything is like in ruins and stone and pieces of like trees and houses and everything is pretty much everything is destroyed there at this point. So for them, quad bike is very helpful, especially to take the bodies of the fallen soldiers out. So this is something they tend to do. So in the night they would go there and just try to not get killed and by Russians,
Mhm.
and try to get our injured people and also fallen soldiers to get them, back home, not leave them there. So yeah, this is just a task they do almost every day, and I would pretty much like to, help them. And we bought the squad bike, a second one. So yeah, things like that basically. We constantly do stuff like that. So if
Mhm.
anyone wants to, help out,
So
and yeah,
and
do
yeah, and there it says it's your PayPal and that's your email address. So in your Twitter
yeah.
profile.
hmm
That's great. And then I have a second thing that I saw with the most upvoted chatter or comment from a chatter is for this stream for both of us from Dave. Anna is pretty amazing in my honest opinion. Thanks, Dave.
Ah, thank you, Dave. That's very sweet. I appreciate it. Yeah, Dave is a champ, obviously.
Yeah,
But
he's
anyhow,
also half Greek, I think, right,
oh,
Kircho? Isn't he?
cool,
Maybe, I'm not
fellow.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
actually have
yeah.
some Greeks in another chat I had with oh, I'm sorry, I forgot the name of the channel, but basically like I talked with them, and there was like a bunch of like Greeks in the chat for some reason, and I was like, oh, whoa, whoa, Greek invasion in the chat, and people were like, I'm Greek too, I'm Greek too. I'm like, where are you coming from? All of these Greek people, It's just, what's going on?
It's the
Yeah,
internet.
yeah, sure,
I
yeah,
even have
strange
Greek
place.
clothes today or
Oh, really?
whatever. Yeah.
I'm so blind that I like hardly can see things,
Here,
Oh,
my
it is. It
toga,
is
my
actually
toga.
Yeah, he has a blanket.
based.
Yeah.
My blanket.
Yeah. Did it write for me or is just a
No,
coincidence?
No, he
no,
always
I'm
has it.
just yeah, I'm always
Ah, I
as
see.
in
So
because I
you
don't
always
turn on my what's it called, Heizung,
Your
Kircho?
heater.
My heater, because
oh
that's like a thing in Germany. Everyone because of the war, not be, and that's the like kind of cool thing I think, because most people said turn down your heaters because there are people on the other side here in Europe who are dependent upon us. That's I think something cool. We or especially I noticed at work that people like trying to reduce their gas emissions
I
so
see. Yeah.
so Russia doesn't earn that much money.
Yeah, the consumption of like gas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's very nice. Yeah, I heard of it that people do it, and I actually really talked. I think with a German lady. I think yeah, I think she was German. She was like, oh, like fuck that like gas and everything. I'm not like going to even use it. And she was like talking about like kind of cold was for her because she used heater like way less. And I was like, oh, relatable. Like I don't have heat because the bombs, for
Mm.
almost entire winter, and we didn't have like light and like water and things like that because they constantly bombed like our infrastructure, like power
Yep.
stations, things like that. And in winter, obviously, when it's pretty cold in Ukraine, and yeah, so it was a kind of hard winter this time around for sure for
Mm.
many people, and especially those who were like occupied. They have like holes in their like windows and doors, and it was just very hard, but people like survived that obviously, and it's all kind of worked out at the end. But yeah, just it's very nice that people are willing to sacrifice their comfort to help us. I truly do appreciate it because not everyone does. And when people do it, then I always find it very like honorable thing to do, obviously.
Very nice. Okay, I'm looking forward to talking to you when this is over, actually, because that
Yeah, me
that
too.
that
Yeah,
would be a very good conversation, I think. And
probably. Yeah.
I wish you all the luck, and I hope you stay safe, and all the
Yeah.
people
Wish you
Thank
the
you.
best.
Yeah.
Thank you guys, really appreciate talking with you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Wundervoll.
So, Kircho.
Ach, muss ich jetzt das Outro machen?
Ja.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining the BalkanBande. Dankeschön für die BalkanBande, dass wir hier waren. Ich habe jetzt gerade einen Raid gekriegt. Wundervoll. Dankeschön, Lilly. Ich wollte eigentlich zu dir raiden, wenn wir jetzt fertig sind, aber das hat jetzt dann doch etwas länger gedauert. Ja, das war unsere Folge mit Anastasiya, wo wir jetzt 2,5 Stunden auf Englisch gesprochen haben. Und die Leute kommen jetzt dazu mit diesem Raid. Und das ist natürlich ein bisschen doof, weil dann kann ich jetzt nur noch den Command machen. Ja, hört euch
Alter,
den
ich
Podcast
merk's
an.
gerade. Ganz kurz. Heiland, zack, Heiland, zack, Heiland, zack, Heiland, zack, Heiland, zack.
Was?
Ich musste das gerade rauslassen. Alter, das war so anstrengend. Ich habe mich wahrscheinlich echt so wie Arnold Schwarzenegger angehört, die ganze Zeit. Junge.
Okay.
Nee, ich habe gemerkt, ich bin so aus dem Englischen so raus. Das war für mich so anstrengend. Ich meine, kennst du das? Ich weiß nicht, wie das bei dir ist, aber